Right, good morning everyone, and welcome to the Council meeting of Friday the 15th of August 2025. In terms of health and safety, if the alarm sounds, please make your way to the nearest emergency exit. The assembly point is down Devonport Road. Please be aware that this meeting is being live streamed and the video will be publicly available on YouTube. Members, could you please remember to speak clearly into your microphones and only one speaker at a time, and please turn off your mobile phones. I'd like to pass to Councillor Rolleston, if he could please give us an opening karakia. Thank you.
Mōrena tātou. I muri te karakia, he mihi kawana ki a koutou, te mema o te kaunihira, mō tō tautoko ki au, mō te tangihanga o taku mātua keke, maratmatahau, nō reira nui te mihi ki a koutou. Ko tai mai I tēnā ata I tēnei rā. So thank you for your indulgence to the members of the council, and it meant you have to get a little bit up earlier this morning. So on this brisk, beautiful tauranga moana morning. Nō reira, kia noi tātou. Tui runga, tui raro, tui roto, tui waho, tui te here tangata, karongo te ao, karongo te pō, nau mai te ihi, te wihi, te mani te tapu, pau, ki roto, ki runga I tēnei hui, I tēnei ata, koi ara e rongo whakiriraki ki runga, turu whakamaua ki a tīna. Haumi e hui e.
Tai kia. Right, so from the apologies, we don't have any apologies. We've got a full contingent. I do note we've got our Deputy Mayor coming in online, and it looks like we may not quite have her yet. So what I am going to do before we start, we just want to make sure that we do have Jen here. So we make sure that we've got the full contingent can be part of the whole meeting. So I'm just going to adjourn until we can sort out having Jen online, and as soon as we have got that sorted, we will we'll come back to the meeting. So we're just adjourning while we get Jen to join. know if you're getting any issues and you can't hear us, and we can try to sort them out. And
Look,
we
I've
will.
actually come. I'm on my personal phone. I couldn't get on the work phone.
Okay. All right. So we as we said, we've got Jen online, full contingent. So therefore, no apologies, and we'll move into the public forum. We welcome Councillor John Grant. Thank you for addressing the council today. John Grant is from Thames Coromandel District Council, and yeah, John, you'll have 5 minutes to talk, and including any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and a very good morning to you, Mayor Drysdale, and to the councillors. I really do appreciate the time that you have made available for us today to speak with you. It's I'm actually calling you from the South Island and down here visiting family. Otherwise, I'd drive down the road and be there to see you personally. It's very important for us to have this opportunity to have a talk to you, and obviously the topic is the one that is on the mind of I am sure all of your councillors today as well, which is the very big decision that has to be made, that we have to make, and we've sat round that table in the chamber as well and discussed how big a decision this really is for our area, and we appreciate that. I can just outline to you briefly today a couple of things that have been very much in our thinking as we have looked at the opportunities that this presents and the best ones for our ratepayers in the district. We have been working on this for quite some time. We formed a water delivery team which had 3 elected members as well as staff and external contractors. So we've been very engaged from an elected member point of view in this process for quite some time. And what has become very evident in that is the amount of detail that one has to absorb and understand in regard to the various options that presents to people. And as we have done that, we have looked at a number of different options for Thames Coromandel. We've looked at relationships with other councils in around the Waikato. And we have also taken the opportunity to look to our east and the councils that are in the Bay of Plenty. And through that process, it became very clear that there were many advantages for us in talking with Tauranga City Council and also Western Bay. And what it did, it brings to us the scale that is needed to be able to bring a proposition to our ratepayers or a service to our ratepayers that is of value. And in that, it became very clear that it's that we can also bring to this relationship mutual benefits, and that is what I really want to emphasise today. The decision that was taken by both Western Bay District Council and Tauranga City Council on the 5th of August came as a real setback to us, and it forced us to go to our Plan B option, which was to look at our own in-house model. And whilst we meet all of the requirements, the legislative requirements for doing that, it was very clear to us that that was not the best option. And I think if you have a look at your own planning, and you will see very similar things as well, that it comes with limitations. And that is why we are here today talking to you to say, if you are making a decision, then look at Thames Coromandel and the mutual benefits that we can bring to this proposition. So we would obtain scale. I think we've got around 20,000 connections. Western Bay has a similar number. And combined with yours, we'd be looking at somewhere in excess of 100,000 connections to a water service. That would make a water service organisation on scale the second largest in the North Island, and one that would be of benefit to all concerned in regard to it. We bring to that our water assets are in very good condition. They are lowly geared, and that brings a opportunity for being able to leverage those assets and to be able to do projects and at a faster rate than you may have been able to or not able to do without the presence of our assets contributing to that program. For Thames Coromandel District, the inclusion in a joint water services is particularly helpful with you and that scale that it brings. Our in-house Plan B that we have now completed and is ready to be submitted includes costs of setup. It would be sunk costs that we would never recover, and that is somewhere in the vicinity of 400,000 to 600,000. To put that in perspective for you, that is getting close to about a 0.75% rate rise for our Thames Coromandel ratepayers. To come back again in 2 years to look at a different model really just doesn't make the sense that it brings or that would be needed. So with 100,000 connections, and as mentioned, this would be one of the largest ones around. It would bring the scale and the benefits that we would see as being mutually beneficial. And I just re-emphasize that point of the leveraging opportunity that you would have through the assets that we would bring. The scale of that is not small, and we believe that would be very helpful to Tauranga City Council and to your ratepayers to have access to that. So the appeal today is one of saying it's a big decision for you, and we really wanted to be able to express our enthusiasm for working with you. We believe that it would be of great benefit to all of us, and we have so much in common, being coastal areas, that it would be a really good fit, and we look forward to being able to have further discussions, and very happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you very much, Councillor Grant. Councillor Rolleston.
Tēnā koe, John. Can you hear me okay?
I can indeed. Good morning to you.
Morena. So, John, you'll be no doubt aware of the challenges that Western Bay have had in regard to some of their hapu iwi considerations. Can you enlighten us around what your iwi engagement was like, and was there any opposition, and how you've dealt with that? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question, and I'd start off by congratulating you on the work that has been done over the last few weeks with your iwi and hapu. We also have had many discussions with our iwi and hapu, and we have received feedback from them. It would be fair to say that it has been mixed. It's been a very healthy discussion and part of the ongoing dialogue that we would have. Some were supportive of the views of working together with external partners and could see the benefit, and others expressed a view that they believed the best option was a standalone option. I think the mutual respect that we have developed and the willingness for ongoing discussions has created the environment where we have been able to reach a view that we need to look at what is in the best interest of our entire district. And as a result of that, we believe that we have an understanding of why we are heading down the water services organisation area rather than maintaining something that would be at a higher cost for ratepayers. So I'm not sure if that has answered your question, but we have had extensive dialogue and look forward to that continuing further with our local iwi and hapu.
Is there any other questions? Just one from me. So you've obviously prepared both water services delivery plan. What sort of quantum, you talk about that it's not as beneficial to ratepayers. Have you got a quantum kind of over the longer period as to what that looks like?
Yes, we do. We know, first of all, we have those upfront costs that don't include staff time. So we're looking at somewhere in the vicinity of 400,000 to 600,000, which will be sunk costs because ultimately we must move to a water services organisation. If we look through to 2034, the 10-year period, it works out on average at a benefit to our ratepayers of about $500 not to be in our own in-house model. So $500 less per year in rates is the benefits from the scale that this would bring.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you to be able to quantify that. Sorry, that was just had a follow up from Councillor Schuler.
Just as a percentage, what does that work out, that 500 on what your rates would or wouldn't be? Do you know off the top of your head what the total?
Look, it's a bit hard to be clear, but in today's terms, that would represent, we're looking at a charge at the moment about $2,000. So $500 is obviously a quarter of that. So it's no small amount.
Thank you. That's great to quantify that. Have we got any other questions? If there's no further questions, thank you very much, Councillor Grant. I hope you enjoy the rest of your trip in the South Island, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Right, we move on, and now I ask for any declarations of conflict of interest. There is none. Again, if we have any conflicts come up, please identify them. I'm sorry, I've realised we've just lost Jen again. So we'll while we're waiting for that, I do just want to make a couple of announcements and thank yous. So as part of the process, I guess we've done as new governors, and there's been a big organisational reset as part of that, and it's a new chapter, I guess, from Monday when our new leadership structure takes effect. And as part of that, and part of the organisation right sizing, it is sad to see a few people go, and I just want to make a special mention to Kaylee Dunphy, to Coral Hare, and to Dan Smith, from some of our senior leadership team, that today is their last day, and we've interacted with all three of those people, and quite significantly, and we thank them for all the service they've given to Tauranga City Council, and wish them the best in going forward. There's a couple of other special mentions. Paul Davidson is celebrating 20 years with Tauranga City Council today, which is quite a significant milestone, and we thank Paul for all the work that he's done and the interactions that we've had with him. It's a very significant milestone, as well as from Priority One, Nigel Tutt is finishing today and going off into a new job. So we wish Nigel all the best and thank him again for all he's done for the City of Tauranga. That was very good timing, Jen. We've just done some announcements of some of the people leaving the organisation, and congratulating Paul Davidson for 20 years of being with Council. We hope that Jen can hear us, and if that's the case, we're going to get into the business section of today's meeting. I just want to, I guess, outline and give a little bit of an explanation of why we're here today. We made a decision on local waters done well on the 5th of August. Today is not about relitigating, that decision. We had a majority decision, and that decision stands, and that becomes the starting point for today's meeting. So on that decision, which was a departure from a direction that we had previously been heading in, there is some implications and ramifications, and some of those are included in this report. So today, what we're going to talk about is not necessarily the decision we made. That is on the table. We are going to focus on the key information that has come to light since then, and that includes a raft of information from DIA, from Thames Coromandel District Council, from Western Bay District Council, who Western Bay are obviously not capable of going on their own, and it's about being prudent to consider that information and either reaffirming the decision we made on the 5th once we've considered that information, or it's looking at an alternative option. So that is why we're here today. I want to keep the debate to the new information, because I think if anyone wants to go and view the video from the 5th, they can see everyone's views around the table and on the information on that day, the decision that was made. So I'm going to hand over to Christine, and she can just explain maybe a very brief overview of this report and some of the key points that we need to consider in the decision that we've got on the table.
Thanks, Mayor Mahi. Oh, it's not going to work. Oh, it's a power cord. So I'll keep it closer so you can hear what I'm saying. So that's correct. So the purpose of the report is an update on correspondence and other information that has been received by Tauranga City Council post the 5th of August decision that you made. And it is also for staff to provide you advice on the implications associated with implementing your resolution. So we have commenced rapidly the work to move forward on the resolutions that you've passed, and we felt it was appropriate for us at the soonest opportunity to report to you those implications so you could consider them. As the Mayor said, the previous resolutions, which were 9 December, 24 March and 26 May, all were proceeding in the direction of a multi-council water organisation, and all of that previous work and direction had a start date no later than the 1st of July 2027. Your resolution of the 5th of August had sort of two key components. One was that you wanted a water services delivery plan with an in-house model for the duration of the plan, and the intent for a water service organisation no later than the 1st of July 2028. So I'll just go through the key parts of the report and cover what they do. So the report works through the in-house water delivery services plan. We've outlined in the report the assumptions on which we're proceeding with preparation of the financial information. We really just wanted to check in that you're comfortable. It had been previously included in the work that you'd had on the different modelling options, because we had always had in-house as one of the options. But we hadn't really covered too much detail with you about the underlying assumptions, because the primary work was around the multi. So we've put into this report what are those underlying assumptions, just to check in that you're comfortable, so that when you were to get a water services delivery plan on that basis, you'd be comfortable with moving forward. We are addressing the financial parameters that would apply for an in-house model, and particularly what we would need to do to meet the LGFA requirements. Again, that has been covered in the previous reports to you, but not hugely in depth, so we've covered a bit more of that in this report. And what that indicates from the modelling work we've done is that we would need to remove a circa 400 million in the 2027 to 2034 period from the capital program. So that's about 16% reduction in the non-waters capital part of council's business in order to meet the fiscal prudency requirements associated with LGFA. The next part of the report deals with correspondence that we've received since the date of the 5th of August. There were letters that have come from both Western Bay Plenty District Council and Thames Coromandel District Council, which outline for you their view of the implications of the decision that you made for their councils. DIA has provided a written letter that covers two key points. Firstly, the fact that in the Local Government Water Services Preliminary Arrangements Act, a council may, it's not a must, may consider impacts on communities outside of the Tauranga community in this case. So TCC can consider the impacts of its decision on communities within what would be the joint water services area. And can also take into account the views of territorial authorities who may be part of that Joint Water Services Authority. So that's effectively saying that the letters that you've received from TCDC and Western Bay Plenty District Council, that under the legislation you may take that into account in your decision making, which is different from the most other decisions you make, which are under the Local Government Act, which you really need to be thinking about your own jurisdiction. This extends your decision-making considerations beyond that. The letter from DIA also covers the Crown Facilitator process as outlined in the legislation and provides you some information around under what circumstances a Crown Facilitator could or would be appointed, the role of that Crown Facilitator, the scope of their work, etc. DIA are going to be available online. Jaren's sure to answer any questions if you want. And lastly, in terms of external communications, Local Government Funding Agency has clarified their expectations. I think that came out on the 9th of August, clarified their expectations around the in-house water model, and that's contained in the report. And one of the key areas it addresses is governance and the expectation of external governance if you under the in-house water services model. The 5th of August resolution that you passed had some key elements that have significant implications, both process-wise and legislatively-wise. And the elements that have those implications are the resolution that you passed, which said there was an intent to move no later than 1 July 2028. So what that resolution did for the first time is open the possibility of a move from an in-house to a multi-council in a time that could be between the 2nd of July 2027 and the 30th of June 2028. And there's a series of provisions in the legislation that have dates that relate to 1 July 2027. So by extending the window from what you'd previously given an indication of out a further year, there are some significant implications. And the other decision that you made that has implications was that the stormwater services may be delivered in a different model from water and wastewater services. So you had previously passed a resolution, I think it was May, that stormwater would be delivered in the same service delivery model as water and wastewater. So the 5th of August decision was a shift from that position where you are now introducing that stormwater may be delivered in a different service delivery model, and that change has quite a lot of implications. So there's sort of 4 areas where all of those issues have significant impacts. But firstly, there are impacts around requirements associated with preparing and amending a water services delivery plan. Issues associated with the preparation of a water services strategy, which must be prepared after the water service delivery plan, and that the resolutions that you pass introduce the possibility, under different scenarios of how it might roll out, of multiple water services delivery plans. Depending on the decisions you make, it could be 2 or 3 water services strategies may be required. There are implications in terms of transitioning from one service delivery model to another on the timeframes that you've indicated in your resolution of the 5th of August. And there are implications on the stormwater possibility that they might be delivered through different models, in that the council and the water organisation would both be defined as water service providers, and council would need to undertake the steps of a water service provider, both in terms of the establishment, the water services delivery plan, this water services strategy, but also all the regulatory requirements and the requirements of the Commerce Commission under that arrangement. So we felt it was incumbent on staff to advise you of these implications so that you are aware of them, and that having considered that, then you make a call as to whether you wish to proceed or reconfirm your decision or provide some alternative direction. So that was just a summary. The team are here to answer any questions on any of those matters.
Thank you very much, Christine. Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mayor, and good morning, Councillor Schooler. Is the issue of a 2027-2028 start date for a potential CCO, as you've raised in the discussion, germane to the report and therefore within the scope of something Council can make a decision on today?
Yes, it is a critical element. So that change in date triggers a whole series of legislative matters that need to be taken into account and actioned on. And so that's one of the reasons we're coming back, because you wouldn't not have been aware of that because we weren't aware that you were likely or were considering a resolution. So yes.
I'm not sure if we've got DIA. Are you there and you can hear us?
We're here, Mayor Drysdale.
Welcome.
You hear me?
Yes, no, thank you. I just want to dig in a little bit around the Crown Facilitator. So as I see it, we've got two different scenarios here. We've got Western Bay of Plenty District Council who's asked for a Crown Facilitator, and we've got Thames Coromandel District Council who has asked to be joined into that process. So I'm just trying to get a understanding of, obviously they are appointed to Western Bay and or Thames Coromandel. What is the implications for us, obviously being one of the partners that has worked in, the terms of reference, for example, what is the likely teeth that they're going to have to work with us?
Sure, thanks, Your Worship. So I'll just caveat everything I say here by making it clear that decisions to appoint a Crown Facilitator rest with the Minister. So in the scenario you've laid out, Your Worship, if a Crown Facilitator were to be appointed to Western Bay of Plenty, for example, to support them, to essentially be able to deliver a water service delivery plan that meets the legislative requirements, the scope of that terms of reference would logically include matters such as alternative delivery arrangements available to that council. Given the work that's been done to date, that would logically include discussing and potentially negotiating with neighbouring councils such as yours on whether a joint arrangement was possible and to try and facilitate that as an outcome if that were agreeable to all parties.
And what sort of powers would they have if we, we had a resolution said we didn't want to be a part of that? Are they able to direct us?
So they wouldn't be able to direct you. Their powers are mainly to assist and support. And their sort of directive powers are more relevant to the council they're appointed to. So in this scenario, Western Bay of Plenty.
Thank you. That's very helpful. And would it likely be different scenarios or different powers between Thames and Western Bay, and the fact that effectively Western Bay are an orphan who can't survive by themselves, yet Thames Coromandel can, but it's not in the best interest of their residents?
Yes, I think in the scenario that our Crown Facilitator were appointed to more than one council, those terms of reference would need to give due consideration to the relative financial sustainability of each of those parties. So I guess in simple terms, the terms of reference for Western Bay, Crown Facilitator would be, I guess, more straightforward than if the Crown Facilitator were appointed to multiple parties.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Crowther.
Yeah, Darren, thank you for coming along again. I'm just wanting to clarify, you talk about neighbouring councils. Are you, in the case of Western Bay Plenty District Council, do you mean adjoining councils such as Tauranga, Rotorua, Whakatane, and I mean presumably not Hauraki because they're elsewhere, or would that extend further? And I asked that in the context that our resolution on the 5th of August was basically had the same result, excuse me, same result as the Rotorua and Whakatane and Potiki resolutions from prior to that time.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. I think, you know, and again, just caveat this by terms of reference for a Crown Facilitator would be determined by the Minister. But logically, the consideration of partners would apply, you know, more broadly than just immediately neighbouring councils or contiguous councils, if you like. You know, there's no requirement for joint arrangements to be between contiguous councils. So if there were willingness to engage with councils within the broader Bay of Plenty region or further afield, then all of those things could be considered.
Is there any other questions for staff or for DIA? Yeah, Councillor Rolleston.
I'm not sure whether this is for you, Christine, or DIA. In terms of a lot of correspondence coming through that we're still sort of processing, but Western Bay have basically advised that they can't provide their plan based on standalone. Thames have said they can, but it makes a lot more sense, both financially, etc., to be part of a multi. Has anyone done the numbers around, does Western Bay going with Thames make Western Bay sustainable? It's probably not for you, Jared, it's probably for ourselves.
My recollection is that with one of the Martin Jenkins models that was the options that Martin Jenkins modelled was TCDC and Western Bay as a 2. We'd have to go back and have a look if they did that. So the team will see if we can find that. They modelled a range of scenarios or options, and I can't recall whether that was one. Oh, Ian's saying no, it wasn't one of the ones that Martin Jenkins did. Perfect, there's the answer. So no, it wasn't one of the ones that was modelled.
So I guess follow up, how will we know whether that would help? Because we've got a number of moving parts at the moment, and as I say, we've received letters in the last few days. How would we understand whether that is, because Western Bay have basically gone help. That's what I'm reading. They're in a very challenging position. I think John sort of said we're okay, but we would be a hell of a lot better if we were part of this work that's been going to date. What would we need to do to know whether Western Bay can meet its requirements with Thames? Is that too late? Thames Coromandel, because they've raised the flag and said we're a distress flag. I'm surprised that wasn't an option. I guess that's probably what I'm saying.
I think it might be better for TCDC to speak to this if you're agreeable. There's a person who's Ian's been working on that, because it's not really a TCC to comment on whether an arrangement between 2 other councils might work. So if the mayor,
You're happy to allow, so Ian Morton, Martin Jenkins. Yeah, so he's project director for Thames Coromandel.
Kia ora. So through you, Mayor. We didn't model that. So the whole purpose of the modelling that we've done is all about scale. So we did look at a various range of options, and so one of the options we looked at was looking at other Waikato councils, but the scale was 50,000 connections. So we kind of got to the point that says actually this solution of around 100,000 connections is what we would model. So obviously Thames Coromandel and Western Bay of Plenty with 40,000 connections doesn't make a huge amount of rationale for scale, so we didn't proceed with the modelling on that basis.
Thank you for that. Councillor Crowther.
Can I ask through the chair follow-up question to? I guess I'm interested in that because the debt profiles and the CapEx programs and the revenue projections indicate that there'll be a very compatible match between Thames Coromandel and Western Bay of Plenty District Councils, far more compatible than with Tauranga City Council. And that they also, when you look at the size of that entity, that it would be bigger than all the South Island entities, which are quite numerous, I think. I'll just get the number. So excuse me for a sec while I pull up that number, because it will give a bit of a feel for people. There are a projected, I think, 18 South Island entities. Only Dunedin and Christchurch will be bigger from the numbers that have been put out by independent analysis, and significantly bigger also than a number of North Island entities. So in that sense, you know, I guess I'm just looking at what is the key driver here from your point of view for Western Bay of Plenty as opposed to your council going, you know, because my understanding is they just want to get an alternative to an in-house across the line, and wouldn't it be likely that could easily happen?
So through you, Your Honour. Again, for us, it was all about scale. We started off on the same basis as Tauranga, which was looking at mutual benefits. And for us, there isn't a lot of mutual benefits of just going purely with Western Bay of Plenty. We do get some increase in scale, but obviously they're quite debt leveraged as well, but they don't have that larger scale and efficiencies. So when we did the modelling with, for example, on Waikato, Water Done Well with 50,000 connections, that efficiency level is quite significantly lower than something with 100,000, and that's based on models from South Australia where they have done it with that size of scale. So the efficiencies jump up quite considerably when you move from 50,000 to 100,000. So for us, it was all about mutual benefits, and having the three-party solution delivers those mutual benefits for us as TCDC.
Yeah, back to you, Jaron. Given what you've probably just heard, I guess the obvious question is why, if the evidence is so strong on the difference between 100,000 and 50,000, why did DIA state clearly that 50,000 was the optimal size, and why has the Minister in an address explicitly said that they are looking for water services organisations around 50,000 or bigger, but in one of the quotes didn't even say bigger. So I'm just really struggling to understand why, when the government agency and the Minister have both said that 50,000 will give the optimal efficiencies, why councils are sort of thinking that it would be significantly more than that would be required.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the question, Councillor. So the 50,000 connections applies to financial settings or lending settings that LGFA have published. So 50,000 connections is sufficient scale to essentially have the FFO to debt ratio set at 8%, which is the kind of optimal borrowing setting, if you like, in terms of revenue requirements to meet the servicing of debt. So that's where the 50,000 connections comes from. More broadly speaking, scale gives you greater operating efficiencies. So, you know, therefore, 100,000, 200,000 connections, for example, will deliver greater operating efficiencies over time. The 50,000, however, is related to the lending covenants that LGFA have prescribed.
So, sorry, can I just clarify that? When you say optimal, you mean it's optimal to be at least 50,000? There's no suboptimal by going larger than that?
From a financing perspective, the 50,000 is the optimal number, above 50,000, purely from an LGFA lending perspective. But there are operating and efficiency benefits that come from scale beyond 50,000.
Okay, thank you.
So just reading from, there's just numerous reports, but one of them was that DIA stating that a key element of the new guidance was that a water services CCO servicing 50,000 connections would achieve, quote, the greatest cost efficiencies for bill payers. Can you again just clarify what the difference is between people paying the bills getting the greatest cost efficiencies, unquote, compared to getting potentially more than that if they were higher than 50,000? It just doesn't kind of equate.
Just Councillor, just repeat my previous answer. There's two components to it. There's the operating efficiencies that come from operating from economies of scale, essentially. The larger the organisation, the greater potential for those operating efficiencies to be realised, and for those operating efficiencies to be larger. So those are related to essentially the scale of the organisation. However, the 50,000 connections relates to the optimal borrowing, or the optimal number or threshold to reach from a borrowing perspective from LGFA. So if, for example, you were sub 50,000 connections, LGFA would have a different FFO to debt ratio apply to your council or to your water organisation that would require greater revenue.
Right. Any other questions for staff or for DIA? Councillor Rolleston.
I think this one's for you, Christine. It probably is similar line to Councillor Morris's question, just sort of on this date of one. If I go to the resolution that was passed, the intent, I think we used the word intent, at the latest by 1 July 2028. And if I go down a few paragraphs in 14, we're talking some significant additional costs of 3,200. If we stay in-house compared to multi, it's paragraph 14, bullet point 2, number 3. And then I think down to there's a paragraph which refers to 400 million. I think it's paragraph 18. So I guess paragraph 17. 400 mil would be needed to be removed over the 27 to 2034. So that's on the assumption, I'm assuming, of in-house. So I guess what I'm saying is that the intent is to move to a multi-council CCO anyway. Would changing that date change, is that to an earlier date? Because I think you were talking about some of the impacts, and one of the big one was the date, but these numbers are referring to in-house, but the intention is to move to a water service WSCCO by 1 July 2028. Do you understand what because I'm really well, what I heard from your presentation, and just sort of understand there's a lot of information coming to us and at relatively short notice. Is the date one of the most critical parts of that resolution? It's probably what I'm saying.
Yep, no, I understand the question. I'll answer part of it and Catherine will answer the other in terms of the financials. So, yes, the date is a critical part of it. And a couple of things. One is that while it is your intention, the Water Services Delivery Plan, which is your statutory decision on your water services model, is an in-house model. So that's your substantive decision that you made. Then you said we also intend to multi, and we're going to engage with other partners. There's a couple of points with that. By the time that the others may choose to go with other larger consortiums, so that you may not have the partners that may now be available. So that was just something we wanted to you be aware of. But also the resolution that you passed on intent, you could end up under your resolution because you said no later than, it could be before 1 July 2027, which would be fine, and that would be much less complicated, but the resolution did open the window of that post 1 July 2027, and that's why we thought it was really important to talk to you about that. So yes, the date is critical, and Charles can speak a bit more about some of that legislative detail if you want, but Catherine will talk around the 400 million and the difference between an in-house for the 10 years or shifting to a multi under the two scenarios, which I think you're asking us about, 1 July 2027, and a scenario that's 1 July 2028, and whether that 400 still applies under both those scenarios.
Yep, that'd be helpful.
So the purpose of that section of the report is following from the second decision, which is what is the basis that you want staff to prepare the water service delivery plan. So that was to be in-house. So what we were presenting back to you, which has been covered in kind of comments and within the TCC model that we presented in June as the in-house model, that there is additional water charges to be paid by customers, and that there will be less capacity to deliver capital. So we provided a very high-level model which will be provided to DIA as part of that water service delivery model in-house, because DIA will look not just at the water services business unit, but also at what does that do to council, and it's, one of its questions is to present information on what it does to the wider council, and that's also important for council to understand as we move into capital project prioritisation and the work of annual plans and long-term plans. So that's why we presented a high-level model, which is based on a conservative assumption of capital revenues, and looking at the kind of rates and revenues that sat within your financial strategy, actually, and the kind of additional charges in water, and said within that you will not be able to sustain the same level of debt, and you will therefore have to reduce your capital program. So it's a very high level model. When we come to do prioritisation and look at actual projects, and over time in the LTP look at actual subsidies, then everything becomes a lot more real. But that's our best envelope guide, is that you'll have to take out 400 million. Because of the timing, it would have to come out of the next 3 years to kind of meet all those borrowing constraints. And the additional charge is that 200 million that we've talked about over the meetings, and how that plays out into charges for customers.
Right, thank you. I've just got a couple of questions from the Deputy Mayor, if that's all right. So the Deputy Mayor says, we are hearing scale means lower costs. Can TCC show savings within itself due to scale? Is TCC more efficient now than 10 years ago because TCC is bigger than it was 10 years ago?
Well, it's a very difficult question to answer, I think. With scale, there are some efficiencies. I guess it depends on the activities. So.
Then, sorry, there's one more on this is on the a separate attachment in Stella. Sorry, yeah.
Can I just get clarification from?
Oh, yeah.
Catherine, just on that there, when did you say that CapEx adjustment would, I didn't hear you when you were talking about when that CapEx adjustment of the 400 million that would have to come out because of our reduced debt capacity staying in-house, when will that be impacted?
That starts from the next annual plan.
So this is to do with page 2 of attachment 6, and it was the digital projects box that in FY27 there is no staff costs. Are these just not budgeted?
I'll answer that question. So at the time we set those budgets, which was about more than 12 months ago, the intention was for us to stand up the digital project in this current financial year. So therefore, we hadn't budgeted for any costs for 26-27. And the costs that you see there are around secondment of our some of our specialist team over into a digital project, as well as a lead project manager for that.
All right, thank you. So the Deputy Mayor's just dropped out. So if anyone else, I won't ask any of her questions until we have her back. Councillor Baker.
Hi, Atamari e tātou. Just on the report number 46, page 15, can you give a bit more of certainty around the page 15? 46 is the thing. Any more certainty around that likelihood of double work that's referenced there? How likely is likely?
I think your answers questions in respect of stormwater, correct? Yeah, okay. So you essentially have three options. There's three categories of water that you could elect to transfer to a water organisation in theory. And there is the ability under the bill to transfer a portion of that water. So in effect, you would end up with 2.5 waters, for example, if council elected to maintain certain stormwater assets. The upshot of doing that, though, is that if you retained 0.5 stormwater with council and 2.5 waters were transferred to the water organisation, the 0.5 for the council would still mean that you meet the definition of a water service provider. So what that means is that in addition to all the obligations that are imposed on the water organisation in terms of the water services strategy and all the compliance obligations, council would have to do exactly that same work. So what you're setting yourself up to do the same work twice.
That's helpful just because have to is a lot stronger wording than what's in the report, so that gives a better clarity for me. Thank you.
Councillor Crowther.
A follow-up on that. Like double the work, are we confident it's double the work? Because having dealt with bureaucracies over the years, there's often template forms that you fill in, put the same organisational name, you know, all the things that the organisation does, what we plan to do overall in for waters, and then you'd have sections for each water, and, you know, so realistically, are we saying that we would literally spend twice as much staff time to do that?
I think that there's a reasonable amount of assumptions we need to make because no one in the country has gone through this process before. But what I can say is that the water services strategy is an enormous piece of work. If you want to get a flavour of what would be involved in it, I would recommend you look at Schedule 3 of the bill. In terms of what you need to cover, Schedule 3 goes on for about 10 pages. So it is a significant piece of work. The second point I'd make is that the legislation gives you 6 months to prepare the water services strategy. Again, an indication of how much work is involved. Whether it would be double, I can't unequivocally say that it would, but what I can say is that I think it's reasonable to assume that you are going to be incurring a great deal of work having to do both.
Just picking up further on that, the other thing is the fact that the council would become a water service provider. It then has all the obligations to Te Mata Arawai and to the so the economic regulator and the water quality regulator. All of those compliance requirements will need to have been met, will be met by council, and the elected members will be the ones with the ultimate responsibility under that. So you'll need to be up to speed with that. So in that respect, it is duplicated because you've got two lots of organisations understanding, implementing, and with accountability on those matters. There will be opportunities for sharing, just as there is opportunities for sharing across the sector, and as always, we would seek to do that as much as possible so that we don't reinvent wheels.
Councillor Kurak.
Thank you. Regarding the appointment of a facilitator to Western Bay and or Thames Coromandel, it's probably a question to Jaron. Jaron, are you? Yep, with us.
Yes, I am.
So in terms of the powers of the appointed facilitator, could, regardless of the terms of reference to that facilitator, could that facilitator make a recommendation to the minister in terms of requiring a multi-council CCO, or the minister himself just coming in and imposing or requiring a council form a multi-council organisation?
I think, Councillor, thanks for the question. I think it would be unusual and unlikely for direction to be provided like that for a council that has met the financial sustainability requirements in the Water Service Delivery Plan.
It's unlikely, but not impossible.
Well, so it's not. So the facilitator themselves doesn't have the powers to do that. The facilitator could, for example, recommend that a Crown Water specialist is appointed to support the council. The specialist has different powers again. However, I think it's a stretch to suggest that that councils that had met the financial sustainability requirements and had a plan accepted could be directed to do otherwise than what's in the plan.
If I can further to that, so if a council such as Western Bay can't submit a plan that's financially sustainable, in that situation, would it be possible or likely that a minister could step in and require it?
So the powers of intervention would apply to Western Bay, and working with them and potentially working with others to try and find a financially sustainable delivery model.
Thank you.
Is there any other further questions around the table? Yeah, Councillor Crowther.
Yeah, I'm just wanting to get clear, like we're saying we're here today because of information that's been received after 5th of August. Is there any significant new information since, like after the 5th, on either, firstly, our debt position under the different options? Maybe if I go through them one by one, it's easier to answer, because it might be different people answering. Is there anything new that has come to light under in-house?
So we've always said that under in-house you have more constrained debt. What we tried to do in that very high-level model is try to give you some sense of scale. So that very high-level model said based on the same revenue assumptions, you will, starting next year, have to get some money out, if it's in a CCO, out of the rest of council, but it will fit comfortably within the 2034. If you are all in-house, you'll need to get more out. So that's the 400 versus the 100, but that 400 will not fit within that time period through to 2034, based on those revenue assumptions.
But we
comparative.
Didn't we know that beforehand anyway?
You didn't know the
we knew
level
roughly,
of scale. You
roughly
just, well,
amount, yeah.
if you had, you may have known roughly, but we hadn't actually presented any sort of.
Oh, I see, in the formal council
model,
meeting. Yeah. I see, right, okay. And then, what is it? If I go to the second one was, has there been any change in Western Bay Plenty District Council's financial position since 5th of August in terms of their in-house option or lack thereof?
So we haven't been advised of anything. So the information we've received from Western Bay is the letter from the Mayor, and I sent last night a link to elected members a report that Western Bay is considering today, so we've provided you what we know is available in terms of Western Bay's work in the last week or two on these matters. They may have done other work, but it's not something we've been provided with.
And has there been any change in TCDC's, Thames Coromandel District Council, sorry Jen, preference for a multi-council CCO with us in Western Bay Plenty District Council? Is it the same desire before and after the 5th of August?
So my understanding is they haven't passed any other resolutions to date, and their position's been outlined both in the letter to you and Councillor Grant speaking today.
Has there been any change, maybe for Charles, I suspect, any change in the draft legislative requirements for a water services strategy since August 5th?
There's not a change in the bill or the preliminary act, but there's a change in how it affects what we're proposing. And perhaps I should just speak to that. So under our current intention, my understanding is that there will be, based on the 5 August resolutions, the intention is to set up an in-house business unit model. That in-house business unit model will then have to go through a process of preparing its own water services strategy and all the other compliance documents. I understand there's also an intention to transition to a multi-council CCO, or at least explore that possibility. So in the event that this council wanted to transition from an in-house business unit to a multi-council CCO, that is not necessarily a straightforward process. You would essentially have to undertake 2 steps. The first step is an amendment to your water services delivery plan. That would need to be done by the 3rd of September 2026. It's also worth noting that you cannot do that by right. You need to submit the water services delivery amended plan to the Secretary of Local Government, and then they will determine whether to accept that or not. So that's about letting the Minister or the Crown know of your intentions. There is a second step that you need to undertake, and that is called a change proposal under the bill. And that is about letting the community know of your intentions. And effectively what you would need to do there is go out to consultation to the community based on an in-house business unit model, based on a water organisation model, and one other model. Following that consultation, you would then have to take that into account and make a decision. All of this is to say is that this is essentially a pretty complex process that you'd have to follow, and we have looked at it internally, and we are of the view that it would essentially mean you would have to progress 2 work streams at once. You'd have to progress a work stream for an in-house business unit model on the basis that your water services strategy, which is the key document, has to be in place by the 1st of July 2027. And then you would also have to progress a second work stream, which is essentially all of your work to transition to a multi-council CCO, which would be due diligence, an amendment of your water services delivery plan, consultation through a change process under the bill, and then establishment of all your key contractual documents, being your shareholders agreement, constitution, and the like. Like, both of those work streams are significant. To circle back to the point we made earlier, it's difficult to quantify what that work looks like at this point in time, but it will be significant, and I think it probably is something close to double the workload, because you are setting yourself up in a position to effectively have to progress 2 lots of everything. There is 2 lots of water services strategies, there are 2 lots of compliance documents, there's 2 lots of consultation. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think so. So there hasn't been a change in the draft legislation, though. We still knew all that beforehand, but But what you're suggesting is that if because I guess I want to be very explicit that the resolution passed, and I don't want to get in the minds of the mover and seconder as to why the wording was there, but I take it that we all put in at the latest by 1 July 2028 to give ourselves options. The most likely option that we were wanting collectively, I think, was to move quicker, not slower. So the idea that 1 July 2027, if the original plan was for 1 July 2027, there's nothing to stop the plan from being there. So just want to be really clear on that. So just putting that issue aside, has there been a change in the legislative requirements since that 5th of August meeting?
I'll speak to that. There's been no change to the legislative requirements. It's still a bill, and it's actually not a legislative requirement, so we don't know what the final legislation.
Draft. Yeah.
But the issue is, your words were that we were not aware of, because there was no indication from elected members that the 1 July 2028 date was a date that was under consideration. Staff had never given advice on that point. And so my view would be that when the elected members passed that resolution, they were not aware of all of the points that we've raised in terms of the 1 July 2028 date. There are so many scenarios and permutations with all of this that we couldn't possibly address every possible scenario. So we worked to the resolutions that you had passed in December, March and May, and those resolutions were a pathway that didn't look anything like what you passed on the 5th of August. And it's absolutely your prerogative to pass whatever resolutions you wish, but it's our role as staff to provide you with good information to make informed decisions. And so when we started working through implementing the resolution that you had passed, it became apparent to us that you probably didn't have full information in making the decision that you did, and therefore it was incumbent on us to advise you. We didn't want to end up in a position where we implemented your resolution and then later on you go, well, why didn't you tell us that our resolution meant X and Y? So it's incumbent on us to come back to you and say the resolutions that you passed had these implications. They were not implications for which we were able to provide you advice previously because we weren't aware it was being considered. And you'll see that our recommended resolution is not to change the recommendation. It's you either reconfirm it having taken into account all the information that we've provided, or you provide some alternative. That's an absolute elected member's call. But in our view, it's really important that decision making is informed and that the decisions that you pass, all the relevant information has been provided and taken into account. And that's part of the Section 7778 of the Local Government Act in terms of decision making. So that's why we are here. And that is the only reason we're here.
Councillor Schuller. Sorry, Councillor Crowther. And sorry, can I just, Jen's back online, but we really need to speak into the microphones for her to hear us. So
I'm just following on from Councillor Crowther's question, and we're looking at paragraphs 39 and 40 of the report. That's right, isn't it? Risk associated with transition from an IBU to a water organisation. So just in layman's terms, what you're saying is if we follow this process, there's a real risk that we'll be doing potentially two conflicting or contradictory public consultations either at the same time or very close to each other.
That is correct. So the first piece of consultation would be consulting on your water services strategy for an in-house business unit. You are required to summarise the main aspects of that strategy and put it out for public consultation. So that will happen, that needs to happen at some point around mid-2026 at the latest, because the water services strategy needs to be in place, adopted and in place by the 1st of July 2027. That would be on an in-house business model unit. At the same time, if you want to transition to a water organisation, you would have to go through a change proposal under the bill. That requires you to also undertake public consultation. So there is a very strong likelihood that either at the same time or within a very short space of time, on the one hand, you are saying to the public, here is our in-house business unit that is based on a 10-year cycle for in-house, and either at the same time or very close to it, you'd be saying, we want to consult with you on transitioning from an in-house business unit to a water organisation, which is a multi-council CCO.
And just as a follow-up, if I may, Mayor, I mean, if we chose another pass, which is also on the report, isn't in our future. That's not. So if we moved intention, yes.
Yeah. I believe that's partially correct in the sense that if you resolved a establishment date for a potential water organisation of 1 July 2027, that may mean that you potentially wouldn't have to prepare a water services strategy for an in-house business unit. But what it would mean is that you would still need to go through a change proposal. So you still got to go through the formal change proposal and public notification, but the timing of it would likely mean that you could avoid perhaps the process of going through preparing a water services strategy for an in-house business unit.
Councillor Baker.
Might be just worth checking with Jaron that we've interpreted those legal provisions, because he's across most of this detail. Is the advice that we're giving here correct based on your understanding, Jaron?
Yes, it is correct, Christine. So if I can just add something from a policy intent perspective to the conversation. So, the policy intent of a water service delivery plan is for the councils to consult with the communities to make decisions on the most appropriate delivery model for their community for the next 10 years. The amendment process for a plan is designed to be used by exception, because clearly the intent is to make an enduring decision up front. But if exceptional circumstances arise, for an amendment process to apply. So that's why I guess the steps are laid out as they are. It's an intention for an enduring decision rather than a temporary one to be made on the delivery model at the point the water service delivery plan is submitted. We did then get into the interplay between the Preliminary Arrangements Act and the bill that's currently before the House, because the bill describes a change proposal. So the way I encourage you to think about the interplay between the change proposal and the water service delivery plan is essentially you would, if you submitted a plan with a specific delivery model and that model was accepted, and you then decided within 12 months to change that delivery model or to seek input from the community on changing that model, you would go through the change proposal to seek that input, and then you would submit an amended plan to the Secretary for his consideration. So that process applies within that 12 months from plan submission.
Councillor Baker.
Morena. Two questions, and I'll probably start with the easier one. What info is materially different with what goes into a water services delivery plan and strategic plan and whatnot, and what actually comes out of the due diligence process?
So they're two different things. So the water services delivery plan outlines your direction, and it provides your financial picture, and it gives your investment plan, etc. The due diligence process is whether it is exploring with your intended multi-council partners whether you want to proceed with them as a partnership. So if you think about by buying a business, you look at it and you go, this is how we think, this is the financial projections, this is how we think it's going to perform, and then you say we want to look at a bit more detail, we want to look under the hood, and then we want to be satisfied that we're happy to proceed and that we can get to agree to terms that are acceptable to both parties. That's what the due diligence process does.
So so materially, there's not a substantial difference because the same level of information required to make the determinations on due diligence and what goes into the delivery plans would be
no.
the same?
So no, what goes into a water service delivery plan is factual information on your intended service delivery model and your financial projections, and it provides an overview of your water networks. I'm just looking at Kathy, pretty much got that on the button. Your due diligence is a totally separate process where you get into much more detail. So we would be looking to understand what's sitting behind the debt numbers of a particular council, what's sitting behind their projections, what's the condition of their assets. Through due diligence, you'd be having conversations around what are the voting and governance arrangements. It's all of those sorts of things. So they're two quite different processes and objectives. And the other thing Kathy's just texted me is the other thing that the Water Services Delivery Plan must include under legislation is an implementation plan. So it must show the pathway from when you adopt the plan to actually putting in place that service delivery model, whatever the model is that you've selected.
Yeah. And so my second question probably to you, Marty. We're here today for a number of reasons, and to put it simply, there's people across the board that are effectively not entirely content with the decision that was made on the 5th of August. And a part of that is actually staff coming here to present some of the risks, associated to the decision, which is fair. Is it then the opinion of you or the staff that the resolution that was made on the 5th poses too much risk and work for minimal outcome in return?
Well, I don't think my opinion is relevant. I think the decision made by council last week was based on the information we provided and councillors' views of that, their interpretation of the information, and what collectively council thought was best for council at that time. So on the basis of that, we went away and looked at the decision, explored it, and felt it necessary to bring back to you some information that wasn't necessarily available at that time and the consequences of that decision. And essentially that's what we're here for today.
Councillor Kurak.
Just to clarify around a change proposal and the significant work involved and regarding the change proposal and the significant workload required when undertaking such a change, would that also apply to a change from a TCC only CCO to a multi-council? Or is that only from an in-house to otherwise?
I believe the bill is worded in such a way that it talks about a significant structural change. So I believe a change from a multi-council to a single council CCO would probably fall within that definition. But that's me answering on the fly without having the bill in front of me.
Perhaps Jaron?
I support that interpretation, yes.
Right, Councillor Rolliston.
This might have been clarified earlier, Jared, but the Crown Facilitator, request from a Crown Facilitator, would you expect a council resolution to request that? So regardless of who's asking for it, and maybe you've already had some other councils that have asked for this, but what's the trigger for the Minister to say yes on the request? Would the Minister wish to see a resolution from their council? What's your expectation, or do you have a view on that?
Yeah, so the Act is quite clear on this, Councillor. Essentially what the Act says is the territorial authority or the group of territorial authorities requests in writing to the Minister that the Minister appoint a Crown Facilitator and that the Minister decides to grant that request. So the Act itself is silent on whether a resolution is required, but it makes it clear that if the Minister receives a request in writing from the Council, that he can consider it.
Right, have we got any further questions? Councillor Crowther.
Yeah, question for you, Marty. I'm just wanting to get clarity around the relationship between Thames Coromandel Council and Tauranga City Council, because I know that's a big issue for us, but also for Western Bay Plenty District Council and the relationship there, because I suspect they had less information than our council based on what I understand. So on the 7th of July, our staff said in a public meeting, we were first contacted in late April by Thames Coromandel District Council. Thames Coromandel contacted us about having a conversation about potentially going together in a waters organisation after the draft consultation had been adopted, after it had been out for consultation, and after I think it had, even after the submissions had closed. And then also said, I'm going to repeat, when the consultation document was adopted by you, when it went out for consultation, that at that point there were no conversations happening with Thames Coromandel District Council, so we couldn't consult on it because it wasn't happening. And also said we didn't actually have anything from TCDC until then, and then being the 29th of April. But we have, as you know, now got this letter from the Mayor and councillors of Thames Coromandel District Council, which says over the last 6 months, TCDC has spent considerable time on the TCC Western Bay of Plenty District Council partnership approach. This included weekly team meetings with all parties and progressing financial and project management work streams to support the Water Services Delivery Plan development. In addition, we have held elected member meetings with all parties. So I just really want to be very clear as we go into considering that relationship between that council, whether there's been a distortion at the Thames Coromandel District Council end and whether they have been, if you like, exaggerating, spreading rumours in their letters, or whether we have some explanation for the disparity in those statements.
Thank you, Councillor, and I think Christine has the chronology there in front of her, but my recollection is that I first received a phone call, it may well have been late December or early January from the Chief Executive, at which stage I connected the teams up, and I think there was a joint meeting in January, late January, between us, Western Bay and Whakatane, but Christine will be able to confirm. And from that point on, there was a series of meetings with staff, I think including Martin Jenkins, but Christine will be able to give you the detail of that.
Yes, and I understand TCDC councillors have asked us some questions. So as Marty has outlined, there was an engagement with TCDC in January it was. So we then had set a little group up of TCC, Western Bay, Thames Coromandel and Whakatane. That ran from January to May, and the purpose of that was multiple. So we were working on financial analysis of options, and that work was being undertaken by Martin Jenkins. That was reported to TCC elected members in early March, so you knew that we were working with them on a range of options. We were sharing learnings in terms of, and challenges in terms of the legislative, the bill, the Act, trying to get some economies of scale on learnings, really. We were trying to get some alignment in consultation documents so that if subsequently there was a decision to move together, there would be an easier pathway. We were all trying to understand how would a multi-council CCO work, what were the practicalities, and so by having the different councils around the table, we could do that, and we were all updating each other as to how we were going. But they were informal, they were scenario testing and exploring what a multi-council would be, and they were off the back of the resolutions that this council passed in December, which was we're open to working with all councils, where it's mutually beneficial. So we opened the doors to those councils, but there were also, through the Bay of Plenty Regional Council approach, we were looking at modelling with them as well. So that was the sequence there. We shared with them the principles work that we were doing. So in December, our council passed resolutions about developing principles, and so again, in the spirit of partnership, we shared those. That was round about Mayish, and at the end of mid-May, we started working on a commitment agreement. That was all triggered from the 29th of April email that went from the Chief Executive of Thames Coromandel to Marty, basically saying that at that point her elected members had asked her to connect and wanted to have some more, to really start conversations, and wanted to have a session or the two councils meet together. Thames Coromandel, through the period of January to May, was in conversations with other consortium options as well, and was open-minded all the way through until that end of April point, where they actually then said, our preference now is to move to TCC. And I don't know, Ian, if you want to add anything else, or if that's, in your view, a fair reflection of what happened.
Thank you. Through you, Your Honour, I'd probably just add one more thing. So in December of last year, the preferred option put forward and discussed with TCDC councillors was a go-alone option. And that was primarily because of the good financial position they found themselves in. And it wasn't until through the detailed analysis on really understanding the benefits of a multi-council CCO, as well as getting the feedback from our consultation, where 69% of our submitters said that affordability was a key consideration, that they then made the determination in late April, early May about going with a joint WSO, and specifically with Thames Coromandel, TCC and Western Bay of Plenty.
Right, thank you very much. I think we'll move on now to and thank you, staff and DIA, for answering all those questions. And we've heard a lot, and obviously there's some key information that we need to consider. So now it's a opportunity on all the fresh information and some of the implications of the resolutions that we have on the table, as to whether we want to reconfirm the decision we made last week and accept some of those implications, or whether we want to go in a different direction. So I ask now for some direction from Council. Councillor Morris.
Good morning, Mayor. I'm prepared to move A, B and 2 with a series of resolutions that I've consulted widely on with the team to look for another option.
Okay.
So is that a formal request, Bro, or is that just a suggestion because the Mayor's wanting a steer?
Yep, so Councillor Morris is prepared to move.
Yep, and for clarity, Mayor, so I would be moving A, B, 2, 3, 4, 5A. Sorry, that's now 6A. 7. 8A. Sorry, that's 6A and B. Sorry, the numbering's changed a little bit. It's okay if we can scroll up. So I'm moving 2, 3, 4, 5, 6A, 7A and B, 8, A, 9, 10 and 11.
Okay, I'm just wondering, are we able to get once we've done this, can we just get a copy sent through to Jen? Yep, Jen's on my phone. Jen, can you send through to all elected? Jen, are you still able, you can hear us? Okay. Can you hear me, Jen? Yeah. We might just adjourn briefly just so we can make sure we've got Jen and everyone's aware. Yeah, sorry.
Should we just wait for Jen?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have a resolution that has been moved by Councillor Morris. Councillor Baker.
So with your, I guess, support, Mayor, I'm thinking that it's perhaps more appropriate, honest and transparent for us in our community that we address that first resolution that's there at the moment. Because B, I think, is it B? Because whilst we're not here to relitigate the decision that was made on the 5th, if you read what's proposed by Steve, it pivots quite significantly to what was proposed initially, in my view. And I think for us to move forward with whatever amendments are potentially made wholeheartedly and with an open mind, it's important that we put that fundamental 5th of August decision to bed either way. So my suggestion is maybe we actually put B1 up first and vote before actually considering moving on altogether.
Okay.
That's just my whakaaro.
If Councillor Morris is happy with that direction.
Yes, Mayor, it may result in greater support for the other resolutions.
All right. So, Councillor Baker, are you happy to move?
I'll move B1.
Okay. Councillor Rolleston, thank you. So, Jen, sorry, just a clarification. This is being moved as per the report, and that is after taking into consideration the information contained in the Local Waters Done Well update report, reconfirms the resolution of 5th of August that the water services delivery plan will be prepared for the duration to deliver through an in-house model. So, oh, sorry, and yeah, receives the report. So I will, if I've got a seconder, so we've got Councillor Crowther is happy to second that. So we have a resolution. Councillor Crowther has seconded that. And Councillor Rolleston, would you like to speak to?
Thank you, Mayor. And in the spirit of, as you said at the beginning, not relitigating our previous decisions that were made, and they're clear and recorded on the 5th of August. Lots more information has come to hand, probably very helpful, but also created a number of also questions as well, and probably concerns. What I did say at the meeting is we got to go with caution. A number of these have probably raised that the intent is still clear on where we want to go, but how we go there is really important. Yeah, I guess I reiterate, thank to those that have done all the work to get us to today. Look, there's a lot of information coming to us at a fast rate from a number of areas, whether it's financial, whether it's strategic, whether it's legal, and basically I'm comfortable with where we landed on there, and I think what's been presented to us can be still overcome through the resolution that has been presented. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Crowther. Okay. Is there any other speakers on this resolution? Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mayor, and respect the process that we've gone through to get here. I don't support the resolution on the table, and the reason for that are four key pieces of information that we received and I considered subsequent to the 5th of August meeting, and I'll just speak to those now if I may. So since the August the 5th, we've received a plea from our brothers in arms at Western Bay Plenty District Council, telling us that they are in dire straits. They, having cut Thames Coromandel District Council off, then ended up stranded. And then when we were seeking a more open resolution, they ended up stranded. And so they're unable to progress forward, and they're in a very sticky situation, and they need help. With regard to Thames Coromandel District Council, we've heard it clearly from them by communication subsequent to the decision. Initially, they were very comfortable going in-house or with the status quo option, but have subsequently communicated to us that it's not in the best interests of their ratepayers. So that's the second piece of information. Third piece of information is that the Minister has given us his felicitations and greetings and expressed an opinion. And the fourth piece of information for me was highlighted by the Department of Internal Affairs letter, which highlighted an elected member's ability under Section 65 to look wider than your own district. And I think the whole thing makes sense when you're looking at Thames Coromandel District Council, Thames Coromandel District Council, Western Bay, Tauranga City Council. It makes sense with those three because of the financial projections. It did not make sense when we were looking at just Western Bay and Tauranga City Council. So I'd just make 2 points about those four pieces of information that we received and that were significant to me. The first is that when your neighbour puts their hand up and asks for help, you help. It's not optional. That's the Kiwi way. And the second thing I would say is that the Minister has been leaving footprints, muddy footprints, one would say, across the regions. And my view is that we could confirm the existing resolutions today, but what that would do is essentially mean that we're lying back and letting the Honourable Simon Watts do the work for us. And I don't think that in terms of local democracy, it's appropriate to sit back and allow Wellington to take a greater role in terms of the water provision in our city and regionally. So I think by taking an other direction, we are preserving democratic decision making in our region, and also we are ensuring that Wellington isn't, as I before mentioned, the Minister gave his felicitations to us, no pun intended, and we're ensuring that Wellington is not in the driver's seat. I think that's really important for our local communities. Thank you.
I agree with all that Councillor Morris has said. I don't support this resolution, and I guess the further information has reconfirmed to me that we're going in the right direction. Just again to reiterate my keys, which are very similar to that of Councillor Morris. Western Bay are our family. They've cried out for help, and it's our responsibility as the regional leader to step up and look after our little brother. DIA have made it clear that we need to take into account what's best for our regional partners, as well as the people that live in those regions, as well as our own. In this, it's a win for everyone. Everyone pays less for waters, and while ours is less significant, $3,000 over a 6-year period, I don't think anyone would choose to pay more in that sort of quantum, and what we've heard today is it's a much larger quantum from Western Bay and from Thames Coromandel. So those significant savings for our people and those of our partners is very important. To reiterate, Steve's point, we've just come off 4 years of Crown intervention, and I think the majority enjoy having a democratically appointed council. So I'm surprised that we'd even consider the potential threat and allow the government to come in and be part of our decision making. And I think that is a key thing for me. So look, let's work proactively with our willing partners and work towards this, notwithstanding that we're very open to adding further partners as we go if others are willing to work with us. And the last thing, we keep talking about efficiency, we keep talking about ratepayers and looking after our ratepayers and saving them costs, yet the direction that we're headed and what we've heard today about that new information is actually we're going to be less efficient. We're going to do a whole lot of work and add cost to our ratepayers, and I find it very hard to believe that those that keep fighting for the ratepayer are therefore now ready to go and lump a whole lot of extra cost onto our ratepayer and put our staff under significant pressure. So that's why I don't support this reaffirming the resolution of 5th of August. Councillor Baker.
I respect the conversation around the table and the strong views shared. I support the resolution as it stands, notwithstanding the new information that's been shared, for a lot of the reasons that I expressed on the 5th of August, so I won't spend an hour sharing those with you. But kind of to touch it at a light point, this is, and it's been said several times, and we've all agreed that this is the biggest decision we will ever make in this current term. It sets up our cities and our people's, the health of the water, and it sets up our city's water infrastructure and the region's water infrastructure for generations and generations to come. And with that, I think that the respectful thing to do is to give time, to give equal weight and value to every possible scenario, so we are making the most optimal decision possible before we commit to any particular path. Hence why I supported the resolution on the 5th of August, because I believe it enabled us to be able to do that. And whilst we've received some high-level numbers and some more information around the numbers again from the 5th of August, to me that doesn't shift the dial enough, considering the risks involved both ways, as to where we go. So to Hemi's point back on the 5th and what he said to date, let's take it slow and do this, give every option the respect that they deserve, so that way our city benefits as much as possible. So I'm happy and stand resolute in supporting the decision and the rationale behind the decisions we made on the 5th of August.
Okay, any other discussion? Councillor Crowther, you.
I also support my colleagues who are suggesting we just leave that decision stand. I think it was a good decision. There's been talk that it questioning the impact from a governance perspective. I think we factored a lot into that decision. Since then, we've heard that the Minister has apparently conveyed concerns around our regional deal due to the waters decision we made. Secondly, we've heard that Western Bay of Plenty District Council voted 6-all in their decision about whether there would be a CCO, potentially with Tauranga. So their council is split. Thirdly, we've had the mayor write to us from Western Bay of Plenty and state having just been capriciously cast aside, which was, I would suggest, a very jaundiced view of what we did, that we were not capricious. We factored that in very heavily. I personally spent dozens of hours working with Western Bay of Plenty District Council representatives to try to understand their position. But he then went on to say that if our council doesn't reconsider a democratic decision, quote, I will have no choice but to write to Minister Watt seeking Crown intervention. Now that letter's obviously tabled now. But then I find out, fourthly, that he didn't get the support of a majority of his elected members for that letter. Fifthly, without asking his elected members, but knowing we were scheduling this council meeting, he then went ahead and requested a Crown facilitator anyway. So the whole point of him writing was to say, we want you to reconsider it on the basis that otherwise we'll have to get a Crown facilitator. Now he's went and just did one anyway, knowing what we were planning to do today. We got the helpful letter from Thames Coromandel District Council, which clarified their desires still, which we certainly had understood. And then we also, I guess, got some clarity that our staff now agree that the in-house business unit will be able to do public consultation on the water services strategy, whereas a waters organisation will only have to consult with the shareholders, meaning the councils. So that was listed as a risk. I mean, I would suggest, I would list it as a benefit. And I think our community, I dare say, would strongly agree with that. Having not consulted on the partners in a multi-council CCO, I think that is something which would be of great benefit to be able to go out and actually consult on some of these things. So in my view, we factored in our debt position, we factored in Western Bay's financial position, Thames Coromandel's preference, the draft requirements for a water services strategy, the option that Councillor Morris mentioned about the impacts on other districts, that certainly was factored into my decision, strongly so, to the point that it was one of the drivers of that decision, because I want to reset the relationship with the wider Bay of Plenty around waters, and the only way we can do that is, in my view, to stick to our decision that we held. And we also factored in the DIA requirements for financial sustainability. None of that information has changed since then, and although some other things have happened, nothing's changed for TCC itself. Last week we heard Jaron from DIA state that TCC is in, I'll quote, in a strong position, standalone. So we'll be the 5th biggest water entity in New Zealand, whether we're on our own or with Western Bay. So we'll be fine, and we are financially sustainable. Yes, there are trade-offs, but trade-offs around debt versus charges, capex versus debt, you know, all that stuff we trade off. So I want to actually make a decision based on good governance overall, on weighing up all of the factors, having some integrity and transparency around this. So I do not support changing my decision. And to address the Mayor's point about Crown intervention, Jaron, the DIA official this morning, stated, and again I'll quote, a Crown facilitator will have no directive powers over Tauranga City Council. So, you know, to me that is just a red herring. We are not the issue here. As Councillor Morris suggested, the issue is how we respond to Western Bay. And, you know, from my mind, he went ahead, the Mayor went ahead and took some action. That's fine, that's totally up to their council, but we are proposing to actually engage constructively and openly in the conversations with that council. I think, personally, a Crown facilitator will be supported by many of their elected members. I would support it for Western Bay. I think we need to get some guidance within the sub-region around their financial sustainability, and nothing that we do in our resolution will preclude that from happening, and we can be open, supportive and transparent in everything we do around it. So I strongly suggest we don't change this resolution and hold to that.
Thank you, Councillor Crowther. I'm just going to try to hand over to the Deputy Mayor. I think she's got some comments. So, Jen, if you can hear us, you can talk, and I'll try to get that to the room. Jen, are you there?
Okay, I'm trying to speak. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yep.
Right. Okay. So it's interesting because I'm surprised that we have to put a resolution up a second time when we voted it in only 2 weeks ago, but here we are. We talk about, the staff talked about that this was like going into a partnership or a business situation, and due diligence might happen to understand your partners. I just feel that there's an awful lot that is still unknown, and so committing to who those partners are at the moment, it's still, as we said 2 weeks ago, and as I put in my view, we're still finding out so much. We've learned a lot in the last couple of weeks. We did, when we put that resolution up last time, we got quite a lot of staff help with the work. I think the 2 letters that have come from 2 mayors, who's elected members that we're meant to be working with, I'm really disappointed that there wasn't a conversation before those letters with elected members. The Thames Coromandel District Council letter suggested there's been discussions with elected members, and the letter implied that those had been reasonably regular. We had one meeting of which 8 of our elected members weren't able to hear the meeting. I'm aware the Mayor has had some conversations, but most of those have been reasonably informal at a conference rather than sit-down meetings with an agenda. In terms of the letter from Western Bay, yes, I want to help out our neighbour, but not when there's a bit of a threat in a letter before we've even started a partnership. So to me, relationships are so important. This is a really important decision, and I think in terms of where the government's sitting, they need to be aware of us wanting to be sensible in terms of understanding the risks before we make decisions, because legislation is still in draft. We've got elections in October with 2 of the parties that we're thinking of going into a marriage with. And, you know, what's the rush, government? And I heard DIA, I think I heard, I haven't heard everything tonight, say, and I recorded, it was at 9:38, that if a council had made a decision to go in a certain direction, that DIA didn't think that the government or minister could come in and change that direction. Yes, we do want to work with our neighbours, but it's just at the moment there's a lot of uncertainty, and I just don't feel that we're setting this up in a way that I'd like a long-term relationship to work. And we've also got iwi who haven't been who've struggled with some of our decision making, and I'm confirming the decision I made 2 weeks ago, and I'm supporting the resolution.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Correct.
Yeah, so I came into this meeting with a very neutral position, given the late information we received and the previous meeting and the discussion at that meeting. But what has swung me into support of the current resolution is what I've heard from my fellow members. And I agree with all of the comments. I think one that Councillor Morris mentioned was the Act, not the Local Government Act, but that other Act where it does require us to take into account the issues with other councils. But I had a look at that, and so from just one look and interpretation, that seemingly applies to once an organisation is set up. It's not in the process of getting where we are now, getting to the organisation in terms of setting up the organisation. It's once it's in place. Then, of course, we have to take into account the interests of the other councils in that partnership. But I think it's been acknowledged that there will be additional cost with taking this approach. But I look at more the longer term, and given, you know, stuff is changing here, and I just want to ensure that what we are entering into is in the long term sustainable and most cost effective for our ratepayers. Sure, in the meantime, we might have a bit of bureaucratic costs to deal with, but so be it, in achieving a better outcome, I think, by taking a different path, the pathway that we all spoke about at that first meeting. So I think I'd be keen to hear the views of the other members who haven't spoken yet, who probably will be voting against this, as to why they do want to change their approach, if the members could actually speak to this motion.
Does anyone wish to speak? Okay, I'll hand back to Hemi to, oh sorry, Councillor Schuller will speak.
Yeah, appreciate all the views around the table. I don't support the motion. I'm fairly consistent with my view on the 5th of August and some of the discussions and points raised then, and further the information I think we have received, in my mind, reinforces my previous decision. So this, I understand and appreciate and respect the views around the table, but I can't support this motion. I suppose in certain concern, new information has come to light around the impact on CapEx, on what the organisation is looking at doing. Certainly the numbers still point, and other councils have mentioned, you know, quite a significant benefit for all councils under a water services organisation model, which does deliver better affordability benefits. To Tauranga City Council, I think it's quite significant. I remember from the 5th, I think we're talking the order of 200 million over 10 years, which is a significant number, and then we're looking at something around 400 million in CapEx, which would have to be re-engineered or redesigned, or and certainly by choosing, I suppose, and I won't introduce any new information, so those are impacts that are still there for me. The other thing, I think we are looking at a very convoluted process. The resolutions, I'm sure, will put up with good intent, and to work a way forward. And I remember on the 5th, everyone's intent, I think, in the room was to move to a WSO. Our staff have come back and showed us the way we chose to vote for that has some serious complications and some serious ramifications and consequences, notwithstanding external influence or suggestions, whether it's from the minister, whether it's from other mayors. If we just look internally at the complexity we have now given ourselves, and also on top of that, if we look at this potential contradiction we may be faced with, where we will be effectively at the same time consulting on two opposing standpoints, I just think that in itself is very problematic and isn't good governance. So, you know, I appreciate the views around the table, but I'm highly likely to stay with my position from the 5th of August. Thank you.
Right, Councillor Rolleston.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, everybody. And I think we reiterate that this is one of the biggest decisions we will make in our time for the future generations, and really important we get it right. As you'll know, I came to the council much later than all, so there's been a lot of mahi done to date. And when I first came in, the direction of travel seemed really clear to me, that alongside what had been happening. But as time went on, I guess I read the room, and I could sense that we weren't all clear around the direction, which prompted me to dive deeper and to ask a lot more questions of my fellow councillors that had raised concerns, and I did my own due diligence, of course, along that process. And so it did concern me that we were at such a big decision, such a long amount of time, and there was still a number of concerns, which has got me to where I am today. And two things that I just want to reiterate. My experience is all around relationships, and the mayor deputy mayor has confirmed the relationships in good faith. We used that word in the last meeting, good faith. I said in my opening comments, there's been a lot of information that's come really helpful, and again made us have a good look at our decision, but some of that good faith hasn't been reciprocated. back to us. And we talk about our brother, our little brother up the road that needs a hand. We talked cousins, little brothers. Our little brother up the road was quick to cut off another brother, very quickly. And I don't know whether they're going to welcome that brother back in again in the near future, but they were quick to make that decision. They were also quick to write us a letter, and the letters are public record, and say, I guess I didn't like some of the end part of that letter, but at least it opened the door and it said, would you reconsider? And if you don't reconsider, I have no option but to go down to Wellington. We're having this meeting today, and that action has already gone down to Wellington. To me, that's what not a little brother does. So it's raised concerns for me. I take on board Councillor Morris's nervousness around government intervention, and of course, you've probably felt that more than anybody sitting in the chamber. But we can look at that in two ways and go, we're actually doing this act because that's what the government wants. And what the government wants, the government gets because we don't want government intervention. And it's been said already in the chamber, this regional deal. And the fact that if we can't show leadership, maybe we can't lead a regional deal. So I do push back a little bit on some of those comments to say that government intervention is hanging over us. I actually think by, I guess, acceding to some of their requests is a form of, I guess, government intervention. So I reiterate what I've said. I think the information is really helpful, but it isn't enough for me. And as I said, some of it has even made my galvanise what I've made when I've made that decision to say relationships are important. Our cousins up the road, I listened to their mayor's conversation when he used his casting vote, and he said that 70% of their ratepayers through their submission had wanted a multiple CCO, and we've also heard they're unsustainable, and I'm really surprised that if those are facts, let's just assume there's somewhere near facts, that their letter says they're unsustainable, they can't write a plan, and 70% of them wanted a multi-CCO, and half of their councillors said, well, we didn't hear you. That's concerning. So those are my reasons why I'm firmly still of the position where I was on the 5th of August. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So that concludes the debate, and we have a resolution on the table, and that is on the screen, and in general this is reconfirming the resolution of the 5th of August 2025. I'm happy to put that now to the vote, and I can see we've got a split, so I ask that if you please raise your hand if you're in favour for supporting this resolution. And we've got the Deputy Mayor is supporting this resolution.
Thank you.
Yeah, and those against?
Thank you.
So that is a tie, 5-5. I'm going to use my casting vote to vote against the resolution, and that resolution will therefore fail. Councillor Morris, happy to move.
Yeah, happy to move an alternative, but before I do, I'd just like to ask staff whether the proposed resolutions are consistent and within the scope of the agenda today.
So I'll speak to that. So the question I'm running in my mind is, have the implications of what's been moved been addressed in our reports so that the elected members are able to make an informed decision on that? Majority, yes. There'd be just probably a few suggestions and things I'd want to bring to your attention prior to you considering this motion that's on the table. So in respect to motion 6, which reads, request staff to prepare a water service delivery plan on the basis that it will be delivered through an in-house model. I would recommend that you use the word through status quo arrangements. That's because in-house has a terminology attached to it under the Act, and we would have to prepare an in-house water services delivery plan, whereas if you used the word terminology status quo, we don't need to do that. It would achieve what you want without triggering a problem, so that would be a suggested change to 6. And then I'd just like to point out that in terms of Resolution 7, as things currently stand, we've got Thames Coromandel has passed a resolution for a multi-council CCO with Western Bay and Tauranga City. Western Bay has passed a resolution for a CCO with TCC only. If you pass the resolution as it's been moved, there will be still an incompatibility in the resolutions, and that Western Bay won't have Thames Coromandel, and therefore we would not have a compliant water services delivery plan, because based on Western Bay's current resolutions, they wouldn't have Thames Coromandel, and so therefore it wouldn't be accepted as a compliant plan. So you have to have alignment in your plans of all of the entities based on the advice we've received from DIA. So there's 2 pathways there that could happen. One is that you pass the resolution as it's been moved, Western Bay goes back to their council for a further direction, and if they approve a corresponding resolution, then we do have a compliance across all 3. So that's one pathway. An alternative pathway is you pass this, Western Bay doesn't. We would then have to come back and seek whether or not you wanted to have only a TCC in Western Bay from the outset. So that would be the implications of the resolution. So either way, it has implications. So, but my view is, I was checking with my colleagues that, and Charles, that we've covered in our report the implications.
Yes. Councillor Morris, sorry.
Happy to move the following, Mayor, after receiving that advice, gratefully received. It's 2, but it becomes 1 eventually, but that's all right, just as it's written now. Moving 2, 3...
And 1, sorry. We didn't take that in part, so you're happy to move A, sorry,
yes,
A.
Yes. A, B, 2, which becomes 1. Sounds like a song. 3, 4, 5, 6A, 7A, 8A, 9, 10 and 11.
And I'm happy to second that, Mayor.
Can I just check, did you mean to change 6 so the word in-house model was replaced with status quo?
Correct.
Sorry, that's not there yet. Okay.
I'm happy to take this in parts, and I ask the mover and seconder whether you would bring back the Thames Coromandel on the condition we take that in parts, so we can. You want some clarification, or yeah, Councillor Carroll?
I just wanted to clarify 2. The wording, both in the context of whether it's just Western Bay and in the context of whether it's Thames Coromandel as well, and just the specific wording, I'm not quite understanding, in particular that Western Bay Plenty District Council is satisfied that the concerns expressed by iwi within the Western Bay Plenty District Council of Rohe area have been appropriately considered. And I'm just trying to understand what that actually means, because I just don't get the grammar or the meaning.
I could explain how I would interpret it, and then that may be in seeking to implement this. So because the word subject partner councils, that means whoever you resolve in resolution 7, so that proceeding with the, actually moving forward with the implementation would be subject to the due diligence process and everybody being satisfied. And then the second part of it, I think, is recognising the fact that iwi in Western Bay did not support the CCO, whereas iwi and Taramoana provided us a pathway, and you passed resolutions that on the 5th of August for that pathway. And I think it would just be an edit to remove the word of. So I think what you're just saying is that you note that in particular the due diligence process that Western Bay will conduct will include consideration of those cultural issues.
Can I ask a question of CJ as well, Mayor?
Yes.
Can you provide me your interpretation of Roman numerals? I'm going to say 9. Confirms the due diligence process will include detailed comparative analysis of in-house and CCA options. More so, what is your understanding of CCA? How do you interpret that?
It's hard to interpret because due diligence is respect with the other councils, but what I took that to mean is in parallel with doing due diligence with partner councils, what you're asking us also to do is to do further work on in-house and further work on a TCC standalone option, because that's the only other option that would be there. I'm not clear in my own mind what further work we would do, but that's how I've interpreted what you're asking us to do. Yep.
All right. So we have a mover and seconder. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Morris?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And I note that the decision not to reconfirm excuse me while I scroll through my agenda and see what was once was, but no longer is. Yes. So following the decision not to reconfirm the resolution regarding the water service delivery plan, that means that the resolution to reach out to other councils in the Western Bay, in the Bay of Plenty, including Thames Coromandel, is still in force. So there's no change to that, what was known as G in colloquial parlance. I think also the discussion or the advice we've had around these alternate resolutions speaks to the need for 11 in the proposed resolutions, which are considers holding joint council meetings with partnering councils and meetings with iwi partners on decisions relating to sub-regional waters in the future. Because if you have joint council meetings, then you receive all of the same information, the same agenda, the same time, the same advice, you hear each other's debate, and then you go on to vote as your individual councils at the same meeting. If we're looking at the advice regarding Thames Coromandel, my wish would be for them to be with us, because that helps make the finances look that much better. If we decided to vote in favour of including them in a plan, then it would be contingent on going back to Western Bay and them making a decision for that plan to be viable. Otherwise it would not be viable, and we'd have to be coming back here again and having another meeting and another discussion, potentially because we need to submit a plan by September. And so just briefly exiting debate and asking a question, if we chose to move both Western Bay Plenty District Council and Thames Coromandel District Council, would it be correct to say that we would then have a non-complying plan? We wouldn't be able to submit a complying plan unless Western Bay chose to do something. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's
Okay.
my understanding. The reason I say that is Western Bay were considering lodging a water services delivery plan that had TCC, or multi-council TCC, and their advice from DIA is won't be considered compliant because it's not reasonably practicable to implement because you don't have an agreement of a partner. So I think that same logic would apply here.
And re-entering into debate, Mayor, you really can only go as fast as your slowest person when you're running in a relay, isn't that right? Okay, so if we included Thames Coromandel, which I understand the Mayor's going to take in parts, that would then require Western Bay to make a decision, which would then, if the decision was not consistent with our decision, would then have to come back to us. We would have to relook at this decision. That's also a question, if you like. Yeah.
So, and I don't want to be in your debate, but I do want to make sure you've got good information to make a decision, so that's how I'm approaching this. So I've texted Western Bay General Manager, and if you made that decision, they would go back to the council. I think logistically, I'm just looking at the team, if you made that decision today, we would probably work on preparing 2 water services delivery plans, because I'm just looking, one with Western Bay and TCC and one with TCC, Western Bay and TDC. That's it's a bit of work, but it's nowhere near as complex as the other models that we were looking at, because it's just taking one out. It's still joint, but it's just 2 versus 3. So we would probably do work on 2 in the background, so that then once there is a call about which way you were going, we would have a viable water service delivery plan that we could present to you for adoption prior to the 3rd. Yep.
Question, Mayor. So would it be appropriate then and feasible to word 6B as and Thames Coromandel District Council subject to confirmation by Western Bay of Plenty District Council? I saw nodding, but that is correct? Yes, sorry for the record.
Technically it works, but politically that's your call. So yeah, so technically yes, that's feasible. It means we wouldn't need to come back to you for a decision, but whether that's the message that you want to send, that's a political question. Technically it works.
Okay, and as I conclude my debate as mover, and my thanks to the grace of the committee secretary, who is having to be very quick on the keyboard, which is great. I think that, I understand you're going to take it in parts, Mayor, but I would personally support B as well. And my understanding is that the organisation, Tauranga City Council, will be preparing 2. And if Western Bay of Plenty does not confirm Thames Coromandel, then we are good to submit 1. So we will not need to come back here, and we will be compliant. That's my understanding. Thank you.
Councillor Roseberry, you want to talk, or?
I will reserve my right to speak last.
I'll take my opportunity. I've said most of what I want to say as part of the previous debate. What I do just want to reiterate is, I think we're helping out our brother, and I think they should seriously consider that step. And if you look at the financials, the best financial result to all the ratepayers between Thames Coromandel, between Western Bay and towards Tauranga, is to have the 3 of us together through scale and through cheaper charges. So I would seriously send a message to Western Bay to, we understand there is some concerns, but work through some of those concerns and try to get a resolution where we can all work together, because that is the best outcome for all of us. And I'd be disappointed if we are now bringing them back into the fold, that they wouldn't consider bringing another sibling or cousin, however you want to term it, back into the fold as well. So I think that is very much the message that I would like to send. But I also think that at the end of the day, our previous resolution, and we've only taken one part of that around the water services delivery plan out that wasn't reconfirmed. The rest of that stands, that we're still going in exactly the same intended direction. This just firms things up and obviously deals, depending on whether there's successful around dates, etc., confirms the path, which potentially is going to take out a lot of double work. So that's how I see things. Councillor Baker, were you?
Yeah, just did a 360 in my chair, looking at my computer with the resolutions with fresh eyes and an open mind. I appreciate, okay, I'll just get all the sappy stuff out of the way. Mahe, you have shown great leadership since the 5th of August, putting out fires, allowing us to talk and vent and have robust conversations and keep us in check and those sorts of things. So I do respect your leadership over the past week, and to the rest of the team too. We've been pretty responsive to what's emerged, and also to the organisation. You've done the same thing and probably put in a lot more hours that we haven't seen, getting the previous report to the table, as well as whatever actions are going to follow. To Steve as well, I can see reading this report that you've tried your best to accommodate all the views around the table and respect those. So thank you for putting this together, and then allowing us to kind of go through this next phase quite constructively. So having had a look at the what's now proposed, I think just for me the two biggest kind of outliers are us still choosing to keep Thames Coromandel. I probably can't support the inclusion of Thames, because whilst it makes a lot of financial sense, it makes zero relational sense to me. A lot of the concerns that that our fellow councillor who was holidaying down south mentioned, the concerns that they raised were like issues to do with them and very much not an us thing. And whilst not optimal for them to go alone, they still have the ability to, and they've prepared for that scenario. So I don't think we're putting them out substantially by excluding them from this point on. By excluding them, it also allows us to align with Western Bay's current resolution. I see the reasonings and support the whakaaro around them being our brother, cousin, however you want to name it, and supporting their plea. So the inclusion of Western Bay and being a bit more explicit about their involvement, I'm happy to support, and that makes sense to me. But Thames, whilst the draft legislation allows us to look beyond our borders, it's way beyond our borders. If you remember the movie Lion King, there's the Darklands. It's kind of like that in some regard. Not that they're a dark place, I'm just saying that's how far-fetched they are to the circle of life, if you know what I'm trying to say. Sorry, I just watched Lion King the other night with the kids. Trip down memory lane. So I probably wouldn't be able to support the inclusion of Thames. Keeping them out also just means we get on with moving with Western Bay, and it fits quite cohesively with what they're wanting to do as well. I'll let Glenn probably speak to the greater details around stormwater, but that's also difficult for me to approve from the outset, which I know might throw things out with including Western Bay with how the resolution's structured. But we haven't been given enough information other than the risks associated with excluding it as to why the exclusion is equally important to our people and those sorts of things. But yeah, still on the fence about that, so definitely be hearing the views from around the table as to why keeping stormwater in and being explicit about that beyond what we've already heard today is important. And lastly, probably 11, I think, is a really nice inclusion to what Steve had mentioned. Joint council meetings and the inclusion of our iwi partners, I think, is a really important and practical step as to, per Steve's rationale for that inclusion. So that's pretty much it from me, I think. Tēnā tātou.
Correct.
Thanks, Councillor Baker, for expressing your view around what you couldn't support, and that's Hauraki. But one part I couldn't support, and perhaps as indicated by Councillor Baker regarding Councillor Crowther having a bit of input into the stormwater issue, and I'm waiting to hear that. But my initial concern is around that stormwater, and I would prefer...
Sorry, Rick, could you just speak into the mic a little bit more.
Okay, so my issue is around 8A. I would prefer and support 8B if it was changed to that, because I have got serious concerns about including stormwater and potential difficulty to get it removed going through that process. So I'm not sure where the committee or the council sits on that matter, but I could support, you know, most of what's there apart from that stormwater.
Thank you, Councillor Couret. Anyone else like to discuss? Councillor Crowther.
Yeah, I appreciate everybody's words around this. I think I'd like to be very clear to the people of Tauranga that, you know, whatever we dress it up as, this is a revoked decision by any other name, and I think we need to just be upfront and be transparent around that, because it is a very much a U-turn. We were going to do a water services delivery plan for in-house for the 10 years. We're now not going to do that under this proposal. So we'll see what the support is at each particular part as we vote for it. But I think if that particular, I've lost track of the numbers, sorry, but whichever one it is, that will be the only thing of significance that needed to be changed. And it will be if under this proposal. So I can't support that that part of the resolution. So when I look at the reality of this, that it does come down to politics. If we don't say yes to a CCO today, Western Bay Council will still exist. The Western Bay will still exist. They'll still get water and wastewater services. Nothing will change in that sense. And we can still end up in a CCO with Western Bay, as we intended in our initial resolution. We could also get it in with TCDC and other councils. But what we might lose is our regional deal. So, you know, whether we call it, you know, a U-turn or call it whatever, the reality is that there are factors here that mean we may not be making this decision just on a waters basis. And there is a pathway for Western Bay of Plenty District Council if they choose it. So the idea that we need to look after our little brother, I mean, having spent more time, I suspect, than everyone else around the table combined talking to our little brother at various levels, including staff, I would suggest that there is a strong split within that district. I went to 3 of their consultations. You know, there's a real split. And it was 43% who submitted in favour of a multi-council CCO, so not a majority. And the council was obviously split 6-all. So, you know, to me, it's finely balanced there in terms, and that was in spite of them knowing all the stuff that we are now considering, saying we've got to rush in and help little bro down the road. They are getting help. They've already got help. The Mayor has proactively, before we had this meeting, reached out, got a facilitator. That's the role of a facilitator. And we will engage really openly, I'm sure, with that facilitator. But we don't have to feel obliged under legislation or under ethics or morality. We don't have to feel obliged, because they will still deliver their waters. They will still come up with a plan. It will either be in or out. But we, within our resolution on 5th of August, were not making a long-term commitment to them for sure, but we were signalling strongly our intent to go to a multi-council CCO with that council, but we were wanting to do it in a way that ensured better relationships across the Bay of Plenty region and try to reset that set of relationships, which needs resetting. Make no mistake, since our resolution, the support we have got from across the Bay, from, let's just say, from people in high offices has been quite heartwarming and appreciated. And I think that that's something that would do us well to keep in mind. So I want TCC to retain control of the process. So that's why I voted the way I did on the first resolution. That's why I will in the appropriate point in this resolution. In terms of stormwater, which Councillors Baker and Kura have raised. It's a high priority for me because in my view, we need to spend more. As the staff said, costs more money, ratepayers' money. I'm suggesting we spend more of that money, which is basically staff time, which means an allocation within budgets to some extent, but maybe requiring more budget hours funded to keep waters in-house. And that's my strongly held view. Otherwise, we are knowingly signing up to higher costs for our people. So we have to act within the current information that we know. And under the current draft legislation, that's the way it currently shapes up. And what you could argue is that we can put it in, take it out, do whatever. But we do know, as pointed out by Councillor Baker, that the government secretary will have the say-so on changes. Now, I don't want to give government more control over us. What this resolution's doing is saying we're succumbing to the politics, if I put it politely, and that we are giving away control to the government already, and then we're planning to give even more away by changing our resolution on stormwater. So not only are we changing the substantive resolution around an in-house water services delivery plan for the decade, but we are changing stormwater. And I really can't support that. So whatever your views on the other parts of this, I strongly urge all of you to vote down 8A and to choose 8B to actually ensure that we have stormwater out. And if that requires a resubmission of the plan, so be it. I think we need to wear that cost because ultimately it'll be our low-income people who will pay for that potentially. And that's what I think we need to avoid at all costs, because the cost increases for waters are huge and we don't want them passed on in an uncontrolled way to us through stormwater charges.
Councillor Kura.
If I could, potentially request the mover and seconder to speak to that option to change 8A to 8B. Is there a willingness?
I think if we take in parts, we'll get an answer, knowing that if you don't support A, you'll support B. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. Just, Mayor's indicated we'll take it in parts, but just seeking staff advice on B. Resubmission of a plan by 15th of December 2025 under the current Act versus amending later via the current bill, and which is easier? And if we adopted B today, what would that do in terms of consistency with Western Bay of Plenty?
So are you talking about a specific part of Resolution B, which sub-bit will... Sorry, I'm not clear what you're...
8B, staff will resubmit the water services delivery plan without stormwater by 15th December 2025. That's one of the options. There's going to be a motion put in parts, and that's one of the things council will consider. Yeah. So I'm just seeking officers' advice around whether it is easier to resubmit a plan under the current Act, or my understanding is doing an amendment later versus through the bill that's going through the House is more difficult. Is that correct?
It probably is. We've just been sort of talking about some of the implications of stormwater, and it's probably one that I appreciate if we could have some time, but maybe, Mayor, if you want to work through the rest, and then maybe we could take a break and we can give you some advice, because I understand what you're trying to achieve, and I'd just like some time for us to get together and maybe give some options with implications, given the conversation that's been happening, if you allow us to do that.
Well, I guess just from my reading of this, A gives us the option of potentially having that action, but B commits us to that action. We've already discussed bringing in other Bay of Plenty councils. If we did that, we'd have to amend a water services delivery plan. So just resubmitting a water services delivery plan, now committing that we're definitely having stormwater out seems illogical when all we've heard about is we need to get more information, which, I believe satisfies.
Mayor, you could address it through due diligence, say have it in and deal with it through due diligence, and then we would, in our implementation plan under the Water Services Delivery Plan, we could add, and so I'm just thinking on the hoof and rather have a bit of time to think about it, you could add a specific action in your Water Services implementation plan that if you're not satisfied with the due diligence on how you could treat and address the stormwater issues, you would then remove it. So then a subsequent submission of a revised Water Services Delivery Plan would be consistent. It would be not inconsistent with what you've already lodged, but as I say, I just appreciate a little bit of time to think through. I understand what you're trying to achieve, and I think if you were to include stormwater in your water organisation from the beginning, we could build in some pathways that would enable you to practically remove it if you wanted to do that.
Well, we're saying here, at a later date, decide to retain stormwater in-house, which may be December, but we definitely need the work, which is, further work will be done. So I feel like it does cover it. Councillor Baker.
So, hearing that, and firstly, someone said a break, was very supportive of that. No, but when you guys come back with your options stuff, can you give us when that cut-off date, when that decision no longer becomes our decision date, if I'm making sense, just so we know.
Yeah, Councillor.
Just Christine, one question to staff as well, just on the broader context of the work that will be in front of us no matter what. If we go the way of A, we don't have to submit to water services strategies, so we're straight down a different line, as opposed to having to do 2 and then change. So
that's correct. That's correct. Yep.
Yeah. So okay, thank you.
So, is there any further discussion? Yeah,
just one before we go on our break. I guess the discussion around Thames and Western Bay, which we will discuss obviously when we go through the resolutions. The iwi or the tangata whenua of Tauranga City Council were pretty clear in their respect to their requirements, and we've dealt with that on the 5th of August. Again, my read is probably more were opposed to Thames Coromandel than were in support. However, their letter was pretty neutral. To the best of my knowledge, and I also attended the Rangapuhui yesterday, the response from our Western Bay whānau, and I do say whānau because there's a huge amount of overlaps between Tauranga and Western Bay. I know Te Arawa are in there and Te Arawa are in here, but Western Bay were very clear, iwi were very clear on their position. I'm just raising that because if we today recommend, subject to them going back, potentially putting undue influence, whatever word, pressure, back to Western Bay to overturn their decision, which was, from what I've seen and heard and within their meeting, was clear. They were not going to work with Thames Coromandel because of the respect and the challenges with their iwi. I just, I guess, ensuring that we're not then going, we've made a resolution, as long as you get your iwi over the line, that we can go forward. I know we've got all these things to say and we'll include them afterwards, but it concerns me that we might, in some ways we can say, oh, well, over to you, Western Bay. It's like a little bit of a game of cards here. Your hand next. We'll leave it to you because our iwi have said neutral, but we want to include you as long as you get your iwi over the line. So I just want us to ensure that when we make our decision, we're conscious of what we might be doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So if there's no further speakers, then Martin and Steve will have the right of a reply. Right, Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a bit of an update on where we are and what we're actually deciding. So I'm speaking in support of the Multi-Council Water Services Delivery Plan. All councils in New Zealand must produce a water services delivery plan by the 3rd of September, regardless of whether it's in-house, single council, CCO or multi. The water services delivery plan is a one-off transitional requirement that we publicly demonstrate how councils currently deliver their water services and how their proposed approach will deliver financially sustainable water services in the future. We as council have consulted on a multi-councils waters model, and that requires us to write a commitment agreement that puts in place a framework to progress discussions with potential partner councils. This then requires us to conduct robust due diligence process to ensure that the information that we're being provided by them is true and correct. Making a decision to submit a multi-council water services delivery plan puts us at the table to discuss how we and our potential councils, partner councils, work together to develop and form a multi-council waters organisation. We must ensure that this new water services organisation is financially sustainable, meets all regulatory quality standards for water services, and supports housing growth and urban development. We have many more decisions to make and discussions to have over the formation of our shareholder council, shareholder agreement, our transfer agreement, what assets are transferred into the new entity if it happens, and a water services organisation constitution. These are all large pieces of work and they must be agreed upon by all the partner councils. This is going to take a lot of time. We will also be required to put in place a system of reporting and accountability to the people of Tauranga. How's the entity going to report back to us in a way that we feel meets the needs of open and transparent waters organisation? So today, making this decision to submit a multi-council water services delivery plan that may result in a multi-council waters organisation that comes into effect on the 1st of July 27 is the first step in many decisions that we have to make in the coming months. And anyway, at any point, it may all fall over if we're not careful. On another point, I've always supported talking openly with all councils in the region, and the more open and robust that discussion, the better informed the decisions will be. Thank you.
Councillor Morris, you got.
Thank you. Exercising right of reply, just addressing Councillor Rolliston's korero around Western Bay and their relationship with their iwi. I think that's addressed to some regard in Resolution 2, which is up there. I think that addresses that point that you make. We'll very briefly mention the regional deal because it was mentioned in debate by Councillor Crowther. The benefits of regional deal are unquantified but significant for our people, and I don't want to put that at risk. And lastly, I would say in relation to the Mayor's comments to Western Bay of Plenty District Council, who are meeting today, the Western Bay of Plenty District Council asked for Tauranga City Council's help. By passing these resolutions today, we are helping them, and I would reiterate the Mayor's comments would be appropriate for them to consider whether they can help Thames Coromandel District Council as well. Thank you. Oh, lastly, the staff advice on the stormwater question would be most appreciated and help me in considering that decision when it comes up.
All right. That ends the debate. Thank you very much. So as I said before, we're going to take this in parts. So we'll take down to 5. It might not be the correct number, but that's down to notes that the 12th of August, Mayor Denyer requested a Crown facilitator. I just want to check, is everyone happy to take that as one part from A down? I don't see any significant,
My support for them, as I said before, would be conditional on the other approach for 8, A or B. And I think some of my fellow members might be, as I said, I'm reasonably comfortable. I can live with supporting everything bar stormwater. So, I'd like to know if the stormwater will change now, if the mover and seconder would be comfortable. And I have emailed the members just a few minutes ago with that proposal. Then I could support everything.
Okay, I'll just ask staff where we're at.
I'm just messaging with Jaren. My understanding of the key concern with stormwater is about the charging requirements under the bill. Is that the underpinning issue that you have, or is there another issue?
No, there are multiple issues, but that's one issue.
It's the predominant one?
No, I wouldn't want to say predominant.
No.
That is a key issue.
Okay, so I've just been asking Jaren, and he said he's going to come back online. So
Sorry to put
he
a
was just
spanner in the
changing
works,
rooms.
but it'd be nice that if more members could support this. But for me personally, it's an issue. So it'd be nice to canvass the response.
Yeah, I just struggle that we're going to commit to taking stormwater out, which is what B does. When A is saying, let's look at it and make a decision later, where, we've kind of gone a flip-flop before. The current resolution we had on the table was about, let's get the information and make decisions. And now we're saying, let's make a decision today around stormwater, which personally I do not have any information to be able to make a good decision on whether we should commit to taking stormwater out.
If I could, Medra, just now. So I've sent through an amended resolution for B, 8B, provide notice to DOA of TCC's intent to resubmit the plan. So initially you would go in with stormwater, but, with an intent to resubmit.
But why are we intending to resubmit when we don't have the information to make that decision?
Well, there's intent there, but if we get further information and it doesn't stack up, then we won't be resubmitting the plan. It's just giving him notice.
I guess my question is, on A, what part of A does not allow us to do that?
Explicit in terms of our direction. I prefer to be a bit more explicit.
So you're committing to taking stormwater out?
No, there's an intent there, but it's subject to, obviously, further work and discussion.
Further work will be done considering other aspects of stormwater, managing, including assets, ownership, charging, following further information. Council may, at a later date, decide to retain stormwater in-house. Is there not an intent in that we're going to look at stormwater and make a decision later?
No, in my view, no. Not in the way that I would like to see it.
The mover and seconder would need to agree. You've got a recommendation.
Yeah.
It's been debated.
Okay. Well, we can, if Councillor Kurak would like to take that part first, I'm happy to take that part first, so we can have a, Councillor Morris.
Sorry, Mayor, question, and it relates to Councillor Baker's perspective of when does council lose the decision-making around stormwater? That's a key element there, is that council can consider and make a decision, and then we're masters of, the residents of Tauranga are masters of their own destiny. Well, when does that become something that we have to submit to Wellington, and Wellington makes the decision. I think that's the key.
Is that a Christine or is that a Jaron? Or?
Yeah, I think it's probably a bit of both. So what you're asking for is when is it that this decision is not solely yours? Is that the question? Yeah. So the decision is solely yours when you do decide what's in your first water services delivery plan. Any amendments to that water service delivery plan are subject to the DIA, and so and there are criteria that need to be taken into account. That's covered in.
That is correct. The specific criteria is, sorry, I'm just finding the relevant paragraph for your information. Paragraph 36, where essentially the amendment would need to be significant and necessary due to exceptional circumstances. So it's, in other words, you just can't amend your water services delivery plan because you feel like it. You are going to have to clear a relatively high threshold with the Minister.
And then the other question was around the charging, and it's probably something that Jaron can comment on. There's two things. Where does the water services plan have stormwater? Is it in the joint one, or do you need to have one for council with stormwater and then one for the multi-council CCO with the other two? And if you have stormwater in the multi-council CCO, is there a mechanism by which the council could charge rates rather than having to be under the bill being some sort of a user-based charge? And that falls on whether or not the council is the service provider or the multi-council CCO, and I think there is potentially, and this would probably ask Jaron's view, is a pathway where the council could have a contract with the CCO and could use rates as a mechanism to fund that contract without falling into needing to actually do a whole water services delivery plan with stormwater only in for council. But Jaron may be able to comment on that if that's a pathway.
Okay, there's quite a bit in that, so I'll just try to tackle it piece by piece, and certainly open to any follow-up questions if I miss something out. I guess the key with stormwater is which water provider retains or is given responsibility for stormwater assets. So if they're retained by the council, if responsibility is retained by the council, then pricing decisions are made by the council and rates mechanisms can be used. If the responsibility is transferred to the water CCO, water CCO makes pricing decisions, of course, in line with statement of expectations from shareholders and water services strategy, etc. Those same pricing mechanisms are not available to the CCO as they are to the council. So that's kind of the first part. Christine is absolutely right. You can have a mechanism whereby council retains responsibility for stormwater, however, contractually enters into a contractual arrangement with the CCO to essentially manage and maintain those assets for the community on behalf of the council. And in that situation, because responsibility is with the council, those pricing decisions are made by the council for stormwater, and therefore rating mechanisms are available.
And under that scenario though, Jaron, if the council had that contractual arrangement, would TCC still need to do its own, would it need a water services strategy for stormwater and the water services plan have to show that in-house, or could that be shown as, because it's contracted to the CCO, could the CCO do the water services strategy and include it in the water services plan for the CCO?
So legislatively under Bill 3, the water provider is required to do the water services strategy. So in this example, or this scenario, if TCC retained responsibility for stormwater, TCC would need to do the water services strategy for stormwater. and the CCO would do the water services strategy for drinking water and wastewater.
Councillor Morris.
Yes. What's the difference between, when we're looking at Resolution B, which is struck out there, what's the difference between resubmitting the plan and amending the plan? Are they the same thing?
I believe it's the same thing.
Same statutory process.
Yeah, it's the same statutory process in the sense that you need to do it by the 3rd of September. There's a process under Section 23 of the Preliminary Act to manage that, and yeah.
Right, Councillor Curran.
Sorry, while you're up there, thank you. Just to clarify, and I have sent through my suggestion for amended 8B, with the words provide notice to DIA of TCC's intent to resubmit the plan without stormwater by 15 December. What do you think about that approach?
I don't believe it makes any difference. I think Mayor Drysdale probably summarised it quite well in the sense that I think 8A probably covers your bases and it gives you the flexibility to make a decision one way or another down the track.
Yeah, Councillor Crowther.
Yeah, like that the Mayor's suggestion does cover it from that perspective, but if the perspective is you don't want stormwater in there, it doesn't cover it very well, because unless I misheard you, you clearly articulated that there is quite a threshold to meet to resubmit the plan. So I'm really struggling. Why not the sort of neutral answer that sort of says if X, then Y? You know, like to me, if we want to keep the intent of our resolution on the August the 5th was to keep stormwater out by the majority of councillors, unless someone has moved on that, then it seems a very steep bar based on your comments. Can you clarify, like, is it those words you read out that apply in the case if we resubmit by the 3rd of September 2026 to remove stormwater? Would that be a nice easy win for us, or would that actually have to meet that threshold?
So I think what we've said is any change to a water services delivery plan after it has been submitted must reach that threshold. The question from Councillor Karak was what was our view on the resolution, and what we're saying is there is no mechanism for signalling an intent to DIA. It has no weight as such. It is what you lodge in your water services delivery plan, and the substance of anything that you change, you can, within the implementation plan in your water services delivery plan, signal that you're going to look at these issues of stormwater, and so then if you were to change it, it would not be inconsistent with what you've already lodged in your water services plan, and so you could swing off that. That would give you a better pathway, but in itself, that resolution, so the question was, is the resolution of effect? And we're saying, well...
So I guess just a question, because this leads into this, but let's say we've lodged a water services delivery plan with Western Bay, we add Thames Coromandel or Rotorua or Whakatane or whoever, is that a significant change? We'd have to relodge our water services delivery plan?
Yes.
And as part of that, we could put stormwater in or out as part of that change?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
And that would likely meet the threshold.
And that would likely meet the threshold. All right. Thank you.
So potentially when the final plan before submission comes to council for our approval or adoption, at that point, could we perhaps amend some wording if it's not in there to give effect to my proposed resolution 8B in terms of finding some words in there that clearly states in the plan that we will be potentially, hypothetically, if at the time when it does come to us for adoption, put words in there to signal that strong intent.
So you could put words in there to that effect, and you're likely to be having that meeting on the 2nd of September or the 3rd of September, so you won't be able to make substantive changes throughout the documents, but you could make some disclosure changes and wording changes or areas of emphasis. So, and as I've suggested, if you provide some direction to us, we can include that in the draft implementation plan for your consideration, so we would specifically cover it.
Right. Councillor Schuller.
Thank you, Mayor. I just suppose it's interesting to hear that comment, but I think talking to the DIA earlier, the concept and the fundamental intent of a water services delivery plan is a long-term strategy and plan. So to submit it, but then say, hey, we're thinking of changing this, could be contradictory in itself. That's the challenge, I suppose, we've got with the wording. This is supposed to be a long-term underlying document, and we've seen some of the issues if we'd go the other way with a long-term foundation-based document that says this is what we're doing for 10 years. We saw the challenges around ICU to that. So if we then said, hey, here's our 10-year plan, but in 3 months' time we want to change this bit, I'm not arguing, I'm just saying that fundamentally, logically, could present a real challenge, or could be a level that it would just be, you'll just submit your plan, please. I suppose the question to staff would be, how would we be placed if there was view around the table to not have it in, submit a plan without stormwater? I understand that would be significant work. And
So preparing a water services delivery plan which has water and wastewater in a multi-council and stormwater in a TCC is quite a lot of work, and it's not given we are now today at the 15th of August, reasonably practicable for us to do that within the statutory deadlines. I'm just looking at Kathy and Catherine, but that is not a scenario that is been on the table that we've done much work on, and it means you basically got to do 2 full sets of a water services delivery plan content, one for effectively the stuff that goes into this multi-council organisation, and one for the content that stays in TCC. So it's duplicate. It's a time frame issue relative to the time frame constraints we've got.
Right. I'm going to keep moving because we. Well, look, I think we've done this to death, and I'm going to put this to the floor.
Can we not just clarify to DIA around that important issue that was just raised? I'm just seeking some clarity around it. Is that not possible?
Sorry, Jaron, can you clarify? Well, I'm not sure what you're wanting clarification on.
Okay. My issue now is that the proposal, Jaron, as you might have heard, is to make a firm decision on naming CCO partners for a water services organisation today. So to make a definitive decision on that and put it into the water services delivery plan. And the default option is to include stormwater on the grounds that our staff do not have time to put in an alternative by the 3rd of September. So looking at it from my point of view, and I believe other colleagues around the table who want to have, putting aside the substantive issue around the CCO, the goal is, if we are doing a CCO, for it not to include stormwater. Is there any realistic pathway to ensure that we can have a water services delivery plan submitted either via an extension or through some other agreement, particularly when we factor in that we are, I guess, conceding to the demands of the Minister? I would have thought there would be some hope of actually looking for the Minister, the government, to work with us. If we're going to work with them, surely there's a way to actually, if the intent of our council, as it clearly was on the 5th of August, was to exclude stormwater, to provide a little bit of extra time for our staff to put that in. Is there any pathway you can see at all to do that?
Thanks, Councillor. I'll just deal, there's quite a bit in that as well. If I just try and deal with it one by one, and if I miss anything, please just ask. So in terms of an extension to the submission of a water service delivery plan, the Act did include an extension process, but that is now expired. So a request for an extension needed to be submitted to the Minister at least 1 month before plans are due. We're inside that time frame now. So that isn't an available option. So plans are due 3rd of September. In terms of your first question around naming potential CCO partners in a joint water service delivery plan, so one of the requirements of a water service delivery plan, if it is joint in nature, is to specify those partners and to have information presented, certain information presented jointly that includes those partners. So, for example, if that were to be Western Bay of Plenty, then there would be joint financials required with Western Bay of Plenty to be in that plan. From a stormwater perspective, I can't really speak to time constraints or to what decision or considerations may be most relevant to your council. All I can say is your water service delivery plan needs to be submitted. That includes 3 waters, so it includes stormwater. In that water service delivery plan, you can essentially describe an arrangement where all 3 waters transfer to a CCO, if that was the preferred model, or describe a situation where stormwater is retained in council and present those 2 sets of information within the same plan.
All right, thank you. So we have, we want to decide this one first so that we have a direction for the rest of it. And so now I ask 8. No, we've already got a seconder.
No, for councillor, correct.
Oh, we're not doing an amendment? No, we have. Yep, so we can, foreshadow a change. So 8A is on the table, and I ask all those councillors in favour to raise your hands, please. Is that your hand? Where's your hand? No. So that's Councillor Morris, Schuler, Roseboom and Taylor. Sorry, and Mayor Drysdale. I'm going to try to get Councillor Schuler on the line and just confirm her vote. In the absence of Councillor Schuler, I ask all those against to raise your hand, please. Councillor against, Councillor Baker, yep. Councillor Crowther, Councillor Carrick and Councillor Rolleston, that is passed. Now I go back to A25. Yeah.
Just a question to staff, given the result of that vote and the intent and sort of second guessing my colleague Councillor Morris's thinking on it, trying to give staff a chance to put in the plan in a realistic time frame. I guess I'm just trying to look at the implications for, I don't know what number we're on, the one which is about requesting the water services delivery plan to be a multi-council CCO with Western Bay and potentially TCDC. If we choose the partner that we end up wanting to, or partners that we end up wanting to stick with, so we, I don't want to name any names, but if in a year's time we got to the point we sort of said, right, we want to be with Council X only, or Council X and Y only, then we don't have to resubmit the plan. So therefore, it's highly unlikely from what you've said that we would be able to change the stormwater provision because of the threshold. On the other hand, if we were to be more inclusive in this, include councils that we may not want to end up sticking with, or vice versa, if we exclude councils we may want to be with, then we would have a threshold to resubmit the plan around stormwater. So I'm just wanting to be clear on Am I correct in understanding that? The way to hit that threshold is to probably require a change in the council makeup of a CCO, but not so likely with just a request to remove stormwater.
So it would be if you it's not about what wording you put in your water services delivery plan. If your water services delivery plan is, say, for example, TCC, Western Bay and Thames Coromandel, and then subsequently for your discussions with wider Bay Council, somebody else is going to come in, then that in itself would be a change to the water services delivery plan that would meet the threshold. Merely, and you can't, in the water services delivery plan that you adopt, include someone like Rotorua, because then it would be non-compliant because you don't have a corresponding agreement and their corresponding water services delivery plan doesn't align. So I think it is that the threshold will be is through the work that you do and the due diligence, what are the substantive reasons for wanting to change from what you've now passed, which is that stormwater is in the multi-council CCO, whatever you decide that's going to who's it's going to include. What are your substantive reasons for wanting to then take that from your adopted water service delivery plan and move it in-house? And the nature of those reasons would be the considerations as to whether it meets the threshold or not. So
basically no way through at all to get
there is a way.
It is about the
we're sort of off topic on,
For me, it's highly relevant in terms of which councils to support, because that kind of
we've already got a resolution. We're going to look at other Bay councils. So there's if we're going to be successful in that, we'll have an opportunity. And I think if we can build a good enough case, that builds an opportunity in itself. So now I'm going to go back to up to 5. And now we have clarity for Councillor Kurak. And I'll put that to a vote that all those in favour of, sorry, we'll just can we just go up to, there should be A and B. So it's A and B, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Just give everyone a little moment to just understand what. So it's really just receiving the information. There's letters from Mayor Denyer, Mayor Salt, and obviously every decision in this is subject to the due diligence process and iwi concerns with Western Bay of Plenty District Council, and also noting that Mayor Denyer's requested a Crown facilitator. So, to receive that information, all those in favour, please raise your hands. That is unanimous and that is passed. All those against, thank you. If we now go down, so now we're going to take this, so this is just 6. This is request staff prepare a water services delivery plan on the basis that services will be delivered through status quo arrangements until, so this is effectively stating that a multi-council CCO would start on the 1st of July 2027. And I ask all those in favour to please raise your hand. That is also unanimous and that is passed, thank you. And now we go to 7. So I'm going to take this in parts of parts. So we're going to say, and therefore through a Three Waters multi-council CCO with Western Bay of Plenty District Council, just that part. And I ask all those in favour. Aye. Those against, that's Councillor Crowther and Councillor Rolleston against. That is passed. Now I'm going to take... no, she has dropped in and out. I can see if I can contact her again. Can't get Councillor School up. So I ask now all those in favour of adding Thames Coromandel District Council. All those in favour, aye. And those against, I'm going to try.
A point of order. If a member hasn't been part of the discussion leading up to the vote, is it appropriate that member actually votes? Technically, are they able to vote?
Yeah, she has been a part of the majority of the discussion. She seems to be dropping out intermittently, so.
Questionable.
Yeah. I'm just going to confirm with her if. So in the absence of the Deputy Mayor, I'm going to say that is carried at a 5-4. Now we move on. We've finished 8. So I think, has anyone got any aversion to taking these as in together? This is 9, 10 and 11. So we have that we're basically saying through the due diligence process we're going to continue to look at the 3 options. I think this is Councillor Crowther's suggestion around being able to compare. 10 requests a project plan on the implementation of these resolutions through until September 2028, and that's around the council being able to be part of the implementation plan. We've already talked about potentially having a working group within our council and considers holding joint council meetings with partnering councils.
Just clarification, can the mover or you, Mayor, clarify just this, or remind me what September 2028 now relates to, given the 27... Yep.
That's when you'll be vacating your seat, Councillor Crowther, perhaps. Maybe. You don't. Or many of us.
Right, so is everyone comfortable in taking that in one whole? Yeah. Okay, all those in favour of those 3 parts, aye, or raise your hands. That is unanimously carried, thank you. All right, well, we got there, and I thank everyone for their time and effort this morning. It's been a a larger meeting than I thought we would have, but it is a very important decision and has responded to the extra information. So I thank you very much for everyone attending and giving your time this morning. I now will hand back to Councillor Rolleston if he could give us a closing karakia. Thank you.
Well, kia ora no, yeah, it's been a big morning and just while we moved it to earlier, eh? Would have been going through lunch. Hoi anō, ka te ato tātou hui, kia noi tātou. E te ato ka rawa I tēnei mātou e hui hui mai nei, e anō atu ana mātou ki a koe, kia tuku ana koe a manaakitanga ki rongi a mātou, kia pai tō mātou mahi, kia pai tō mātou whakaaro, kia pai tō mātou noho I te kāinga. Ko koe te kaha, ko koe te mana, mo ake ake, amene.
Thank you very much. I now declare the meeting closed at 11:38. Thank you very much.